Round 2.
How was round 1?
Round 1 was great, dude. I really enjoyed round 1.
I appreciate you being on. That was back when the podcast was still pretty nascent. Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me that you guys were getting in a studio and everything.
Yeah, we got a studio built. I've done a couple streams, but we had some extra work.
Streams like live?
Yeah, live streams is what I mostly was.
That's ballsy.
Mostly like to do. Yeah,
that's ballsy because you can be. I have the power of editing.
yes, you can. Yes, you can. But yeah, we've
on
just
what, Twitch, YouTube.
YouTube. We've only done like 3 or 4 of them so far. So still very.
Do you have like a VOD afterwards? Like meaning like you do like the live and then afterwards you kind of like record it and then you keep it and then you post it afterwards?
Yeah.
So you do the VODs, okay.
Yeah.
How is that?
It's okay. I'm still new at it.
Trust me.
Yeah, it's
I know
tough.
It feels.
You know, I mostly just watch fights on it so far, but you know,
so like commentary of what UFC fights?
Not really UFC fights. I mainly do like IMAF fights and amateur world championships and like guys that I think are going to come up and be good in the future.
Oh, like a prospect watch.
Yeah, like a scouting kind of thing. Yeah,
that's good because that's a value add for them then as well.
Exactly. But I'm just doing that just right now for the beginning, just to get ready, because I know it takes like 100 of them to really get going. So
you're not lying.
yeah. So it's been under the radar so far, but when I get a little better at it, I'm going to promote it a little bit more.
Once you started doing it, did you start realizing some of the little shit that you never thought about whenever you consumed content?
Oh, yeah. And like how I keep having to buy stuff. I keep having to buy more stuff, like more lighting.
Scope creep is... Yeah. I think I told this story once before, but like when I met with McElrath and Frazier, they told me that this studio would be like 10 grand.
Yeah,
10 grand was going to be enough.
Great.
Dude... It ended up like triple, quadruple that.
Yeah.
But if they would have told me that from the get-go, I would have never done it. So in a lot of ways, it was actually like better that it happened that way, because it was like, well, I already spent this much. Yeah. But dude, I remember there was one phone call where I called my wife and I was like, it's one of the rare times where I was yelling and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, right.
I was like, we bought all this shit and I don't even I need a computer to run it all. Yeah. And I was just, dude, I was livid. But
it's good things, right?
Past is the past.
There you go.
Something about good times lead to strong men, something like that. I don't know.
Exactly. Like I've been working on it for about like a year and a half, 2 years now, like building the studio and everything. Just because I just need more stuff. Every time we shoot something, I'm like, all right, this isn't good enough, and I scrap it, and then we buy more stuff.
Yeah, because you originally said that you were gonna do like talking with people, right?
Yeah. I'm still planning on doing that. But
so then you've recorded a bunch of stuff, but you don't want to post it? Why not?
Yeah, I just have just the lighting is so bad and the technical aspect's so bad.
Certain quality.
Yes, I want a certain quality before I start releasing it.
So it wasn't actually the content; it was the presentation.
Yeah, and mostly it's just fighters at my gym that we've had conversations with and stuff like that. That's been most of the shots. So
McElrath gave me a piece of advice, and he was absolutely right. And he's like, just post it.
Yeah.
He's like, just post it. The good, the bad, the ugly. There are definitely episodes where I was off.
Yeah.
There were definitely episodes where sometimes I felt like, because a lot of people want to be on a podcast and they're on a podcast and you're like, did you not know what you were signing up for? You know what I mean? But every time I've had a second guest, I felt the difference between the first time and this time.
Yeah.
And I think it's for both the guest and for me, just like that familiarity.
Yeah, it's much more familiar now than the first time. The first time I was
were you nervous the first time?
I wouldn't say nervous, but I was definitely more
on edge.
On edge and like weary of what I was saying, and now I'm just kind of like, fuck it, whatever.
I was too. Like the first 20 episodes, I was trying to like refrain as much as I could from saying you know what I mean?
That's the hard part.
Those filler words. Now I just realized, I just can be myself, and if I do that, then I be more comfortable. And if I'm more comfortable, then I'm not focused on trying to be entertaining. I'm focused on the person and the conversation, and then I feel like the questions are better, the conversation's more cordial and more intimate, and then I'm getting more out of people. Like, I'll tell you what, when we had Steve Berger on, I had an idea of how that was going to go.
Yeah.
And then when he started talking about his like family and his mother and everything, I was like, holy shit. I was like, I had no idea about any of this stuff. And it went like so much more deep than I thought it was going to go. It almost felt like, not like a therapy session, but like, you ever get like drunk with a friend and like you have those deep conversations where by the end of it, you're both crying like, I fucking love you, man. By the end of it, me and Steve was like, I love you, man. Like, this is great. I was like, I love you too, brother.
Nice.
It was a good time.
Yeah, that's good.
Speaking of good times, the catalyst for me wanting to grab you back on for a multitude of reasons, but one of the main ones was when you competed against James Krause at Adam Sella's CXBJJ show, right?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions, but let's start from the end and work our way to the front.
Yeah.
So you won that match.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Walk me through the emotions of competing against a UFC fighter or former UFC fighter and coming out the victor. Just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second, I'd greatly appreciate it, and on with the show.
Well, I mean, I'm going to start with, I think the big criticism of me generally as a jiu-jitsu athlete is that I hadn't ever gone against anyone really good at black belt, that had beaten a bunch of good local guys or like beaten a bunch of good black belts before. So when I got offered the match, it was like an immediate yes. I was like, there's no way I'm going to miss it. I like James, I've got no issue with him out non-competitively, without the good competitive chip on the shoulder. But I was like, yeah, that's the match I want. Because, he just won a match with Kirk. He had just won 2 other pro jiu-jitsu matches right before that against other good black belts. So I was like, this is an opportunity for me to show everybody, especially locally, for my ego, that, I am legitimate black belt and I can beat good guys.
When you accepted the match with him, can you walk me through some of the stipulations? Like, was there a choice between gi or no gi? Was there a choice between like how long the time was going to be? Like in fighting, it's pretty much preordained, right?
Yeah.
The only real question you have is like how many rounds.
Yeah.
But you know that if you're an amateur, the rounds are going to be 3-4 ounce gloves. Yeah. It's kind of like all set in stone. And then pro could be 3 or 5, depending on if it's a championship fight. But I'm not really sure how it works for jiu-jitsu. Like, so does Adam just tell you?
Adam, I think it was 8. Was there 6 or 8 minutes? I think it was 8 minutes.
I think it was 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes.
It was 8 minutes.
But like, could you have returned and been like, well, I want 10 or I want 5?
I didn't even ask.
No.
I said yes, and I said I don't want to worry about weight. I don't want either of us to worry about weight. He's like, he doesn't worry about weight either, so we just went in.
Oh, no one weighed in?
No one weighed in. No, I don't think anybody at that show weighed in. I remember being like, do we weigh in? To Dorian, the photographer, and he was like, Adam, where'd everybody weigh in? And Adam goes, there's a scale over there, guys, if anybody wants to check their opponent's weight or weigh in themselves, And then everybody like looked at each other, and then nobody walked over the scale.
No one gave a fuck.
No one cared. It's jiu-jitsu. It's different, like you're not getting pummeled.
I think it's also, I hate to say it this way, but it's like, what is the goal here? I think the goal is to compete, so you're trying to eliminate those barriers of competition. Yeah. It's different for fighting, though, man, because there's just so much more on the line.
Yeah.
That 3-4 pounds could be like everything.
Yeah. Getting your face pummeled.
Yeah, exactly.
Jiu-jitsu's just different. Like, even wrestling, it makes more of a difference because the takedowns. In jiu-jitsu, you just pull guard, and then you can just create frames and just like kind of support the guy's weight on top of you and try to get under him, and which is exactly what I did. I tried to get under him and I tried to go for leg locks the whole time. My whole strategy with the match was, James is probably going to be really good on top, really strong, probably not very modern, and that I was going to try and use like a more modernized game.
What does that mean? Forgive me, more modern?
Like a more like loose, open, like butterfly style game. What you see at like Danaher, Gordon.
Would you call that what, like the next generation of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, it's like the modern submission only kind of game. That's what I'd call it. It's like going for a lot of leg locks, going for like choi bars, front headlocks, not really worrying about being top or bottom, wrestling up to your to top position. Just mainly what you'd see out of like B team and the Danaher Death Squad, the 2 biggest teams right now in terms of popularity. A lot of guys filter off of that.
Are you following any of their content or any of the stuff they're doing?
All the time.
Do they inspire you?
Oh yeah, and one of my friends, Nick Matea, like he trained with us for about a year and a half. He's their 185-pound champion at the B team's tournament down there. He trains with B team every day, so I'm always following him too.
Nick also
competed on that card as well.
Yeah, he competed on that card as well.
Yeah, he lost.
That was a tough match though.
Yeah, he was good. That guy was good.
I don't believe there was a submission in that one. I think it was like points, right?
No, Nick's incredible. Nick's so good. He's so good.
I'll tell you what, it gave me a newfound appreciation. I don't know if these jiu-jitsu shows existed when I was competing and fighting,
No.
But now that I want to say I've been removed now for 2.5, almost 3 years, and there's been an inflow of them between Adam Meredith and Adam Sella, the two Adams. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm gonna go to like Chad Mueller's stand-up fight series.
Yeah.
That's not really MMA, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. I'm going to these jiu-jitsu shows, Adam Sella's, Adam Meredith's. I'm going to the MMA shows at Shamrock, NFA. I've realized outside of the game how much more appreciative I am as a spectator of all facets of mixed martial arts. And I don't know why I never had this, or maybe I always did and I just never like verbalized it either internally or externally. But I remember when I was in MMA, I used to think like, I never wanted to compete in just jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I never wanted to compete in just boxing. My whole thing was like putting it all together. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm removed from it, I have such an appreciation for all of it. I think it's all fucking cool.
It's cool. Yeah, and the way that Adam does it is cool too. You know, it's a really high energy, low pressure environment. That's what I'd say on his shows.
I hate that it's elevated though.
Yeah.
I hate that it's elevated.
Yeah. So I pull guard on all my matches there. I don't wrestle when I'm on
because of the elevation, or
because of the elevation. Just because of the elevation.
Well,
I would wrestle way more if it wasn't elevated, because I remember the first time I was on that show, Adam was like, "No one's ever fallen off," and then Josh McKinney like launched a dude off of it.
Yeah, well, dude, it's like you take like 2 or 3 steps back or forward. It's like you're on the edge now.
Exactly.
And the problem is like the refs are so afraid that you might fall off that now they're like hyper focused on it too. Mm-hmm. So I thought to myself, I don't know if that's for the visuals. It makes sense. It's elevated, so like no matter where you're at in the crowd, you have a good view of the action.
I would say that's probably why.
I get the optics of it. Then it's like, does the product suffer because now everyone's so worried about, like, basically what I'm trying to say is, imagine you have like an inner mat and an outer mat, okay? And then the second there's any sort of exchange of any grappling to where there's like momentum shifting towards the edge, the referees are like basically stepping in because they're so petrified of people falling off the mats.
Well, yeah, I mean, my first match there, I almost heel hooked the guy off the platform. Jesus. We were like I thought we were going to roll out. I was like, I got this locked up. I'm not going to let it go. We're going to roll out. We're going to roll out. So
well, it was really apparent. When you had the kids in there, it actually felt fine. But then, like, you had, like, Jordan Dowdy in there with his opponent. And you're like, Jesus Christ, like, literally 2 steps. And these guys, and they're big guys, like 200-plus pounds. So, like, you could feel the crowd, like, right underneath was like, oh, Jesus, please don't fall on us.
Yeah. Well, when was the last time you did a jiu-jitsu competition?
The only one I ever did.
The only one. Yeah.
It was the only one I ever did.
So I heard, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but, you know, Drew was telling me that you said you were a white belt when you were on here with Kirk. You said you were a white belt. Well, let me tell you, I promoted this guy to blue belt, all right? Okay? On the podium. So I got something for you, all right? So check this out.
Did you get a new blue belt?
Nope.
Is it a pink belt?
I got your original medals from that tournament. Look at that.
Wow.
Ariane Zexy right there on the back. Found him last month. Wow. Here's your gi match. That one didn't go as well.
Yeah, I almost got choked
Yeah, those
out.
are yours. Keep them, man. They're all yours. Take them home with you. But like, yeah, I found them in a box when I was moving stuff around. Yeah, old times, dude.
That.
No problem, dude. No problem. So yeah, I saw him with your name on. I'm like, you know what?
That was the one tournament I ever did.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy?
You made me do it.
Yes, I did.
You were like, you have to do gi. I go, okay, I'll do it.
I was like, we need points. We need team points. But you know, like I was, what the crazy thing is that I found those, and the next day you called me to be on this.
Oh, to be back on?
Yep.
The time.
That's why I told you I was like, I got a present for you.
I appreciate that.
And yeah, so I found those. So yeah, dude, that was a good time. I remember
when Drew posts these pictures, or I'll tell you what, Sean posted the one after the Cortavius fight when we were all outside of the River City like arena, we're, like still in the building, and it said 9 years.
Yeah.
And it made me go, Jesus Christ. A decade.
Yeah. A decade. Boom. Like that, dude. I can't even believe it. I can't. Every time I look at my gym, I was like, dang, 10 years this year.
Do you remember how it started when you were just like, how many square feet did you have? Maybe like 200-ish?
It was bad.
You know, well, I mean,
it was
separated?
It was 1,200 square feet, the whole thing. And then like I maybe had 400 square foot of mat space. If you combine the mirror room with the outside room, we just grew it from there, you know. We were only in there for like 3 or 4 months, though, before we moved to the back.
Then you had the back, and then that also changed it. But I remember it was like the most humble of beginnings, man.
Yes.
And everybody there, you could tell that there was like a passion of just like,
yeah,
everybody had an affinity for martial arts. Also, that you guys had like, you know, between you, JP, Jake Duff, all the guys from Doug Sowers, like, it was really cool to see you guys shape it.
Yeah.
From theory to application in real time. And I hope this doesn't sound like an insult, but like learn from the fuck ups as you were going.
Yes. I learned from many fuck ups, man. Many fuck ups. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do anything at all. I mean, I was sleeping at the gym, you know, like sleeping in the attic.
Can I say that was like that when we saw like entrepreneurship personified. Yes. Like you were taking showers at the fucking local gym because you were living at your gym.
Yeah.
And basically, like, you would wake up and then go teach class and then, like, go take a shower and then all that. Yeah. And I remember you saying, like, you know, it is what it is and all that. But I'll tell you what, man, a 23-year-old Arion, 22-year-old Arion, I saw that shit and I was like, holy crap. Like, this is what it means to own a business.
It is.
Like, you were fucking bootstrapping
Especially if you have no money. Yeah. If you have no money and you own a business, that's exactly what that looks like.
When you see these guys coming in now.
Yeah.
Because you've probably, I hate to do this comparison, but, like, when Mike was on, I talked about like the generations of fighters, right? So like he had the Tyrant, and then he had like the Josh Sampos, and then he had like the Julius St. Lucas. Now he's got like this next one. You're now, dude, it's been a fucking decade.
Yeah.
So you're kind of having that as well. You had like the Ashley Cummins, and then I mean I would even lump. I would probably say like Sean Woodson is like the generation after Ashley. Yeah. But now you got the guys that are coming after Sean Woodson, like the amateurs that you're building up now.
Yeah. Well, those guys are pros now. Well, the amateurs are after that.
Forgive me.
Yeah, I'm just saying when we're talking about how long it's actually been, you know, the generation after Ashley and Sean was Sam, you know.
The Knights, yeah.
Yeah, like that was the first one really after that. And then now I've got you know, Clark. You know, he's going.
How do you say his last name? Stith?
Clark Stith. Yeah, he's going pro next fight in July.
Dude, he just looked damn good his last fight.
Yeah, he's amazing, dude. He's incredible. He's incredible.
Putting guys away.
Oh, just phenomenal human being too. Like,
how was that in the back? Because dude, when that tornado, for those that don't know,
he just laser beam.
Yeah,
laser beam.
Didn't matter.
Not us. We were talking about tariffs in the back. You know.
Oh, trust me.
15 tariff jokes.
I will get there. No, but it was interesting. That was the first time I've ever been in a shelter during a tornado that also was a fight show.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know about you, but when the show started with the power on, it was like all these lights, all this production, all the music, and like the bells and whistles. And by the end of the night, it was all the lights on, like what I remember back at like the Heart of St. Charles. Yeah. Why is that so hard for me to say?
I don't know.
Heart of St. Charles. Yeah, the Heart of St. Charles. But like, it reminded me of like when I first started fighting, where there wasn't a whole lot of bells and whistles. You didn't have like a videographer at the fights. You were lucky to have a photographer.
Yeah, you had to buy the DVD if you wanted to.
Yes. And there was like this really weird like kind of throwback nostalgia hit that I had, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was a beautiful night. But then I went to Shamrock the very next week, or I think like 2 weeks afterwards, and it was like they fucking knocked it out of the park too. I want to say if NFA did more shows, I don't think there's a better time to be a local fighter now because of the number of shows. I think Shamrock's doing like 7, and then NFA I think is like doing 3 this year.
Well, if you're willing to travel, there hasn't been a better time. This is the best. If you're willing to travel, which we travel, I think that's what separates us a lot is that I travel all the time. I'm in Kansas City all the time. I'm in
FAC Synergy.
FAC Synergy, yeah. Any show.
You guys go to Iowa a bunch too.
We go to Iowa all the time for True Rev.
Do you do Springfield with? Forgive me. What's the gentleman's promotions? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I know that Chris Gregory has the promotion out of Springfield. I'm not talking about his. There was like another person, or maybe it's Cape. No, Lake of the Ozarks.
Knuckled Up.
Knuckled Up. Thank you.
We traveled to Knuckle Up. We traveled to Cage of Honor. We actually have 2 guys, or 2.5, 3. We'll say 3. 3 guys on Cage of Honor.
Did you want to fight Montreal for his belt?
Yeah, it's not a thing anymore though. So, I think Zach Davis is fighting for it now. But
Did you ever fight for it, or was it just like you wanted to fight Montreal?
No, I wanted to fight for that belt in Cape. Because we have We developed like a really good relationship with the War Eagle fight team down there, and I kind of wanted to fight in front of those guys a little bit. You know, I thought it would be pretty cool, and you know, we work pretty closely with D-Ray, the guy that owns it.
Are you still fighting?
No, I think I'm done now.
Say,
After that last jiu-jitsu match, I was like, I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah,
you know? Like it was one thing when my roster was smaller. You know, back when we were doing it, I could actually do it, and even then, it was kind of hard for me to balance it. But now I am out of town literally like every 2-3 weeks
because you're constantly traveling.
I'm constantly traveling, and I don't do the stay out there thing. Like I go, we fight, I drive back.
That night?
Yeah, always.
Why?
Unless it's over 5 hours.
Saving time.
Yeah, just time's valuable to me. I got to be back, so we spar on Sundays still.
You want to be there for that?
I got to be there for that. And I'm dedicated to what I do. You know, I live it there every day. I usually wake up, get there at 8 a.m., stay there until 8:30 at night, almost every day.
Do you find that this grind, does it amplify your appreciation and love for the sport, or does it maybe start to erode some of the feelings that you have towards it? Because I mean, I hate to say it this way, but like, you know, I always hated that notion of like, oh, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Shut the fuck up.
Not true at all.
It's like even a porn star says they got to do work.
I hate it all the time. But what keeps me going really isn't the fights. It's the business aspect, obviously, like getting as many people in there and helping as many people as possible. I love some of my favorite people ever are the guys who just come in there and train every day and have no aspirations to fight at all whatsoever. That just want to do jiu-jitsu, just want to do kickboxing. God, Jake Duff keeps me inspired. He's the best. I don't know if you see any of our reels. He's doing pillow fights and.
Yeah, I just saw a picture he posted. Well, he's got like a shinobi sword. And
exactly. Oh, he's so awesome, dude. And like the guys, my gym just has like the best energy right now. The best energy with the common like just people that are there to train. That they're just, and it just keeps me going. I just want more of them. I want all of them. I want all of Lake St. Louis, all of Winsville, you know, all of St. Charles County, you know, to be training there. So that's what really keeps me going, and then one day opening up a second one.
I was going to ask you that because I just had Chad Mueller on literally last episode, and he opened up his second gym, or had been opened up.
Yeah.
And that was just such a. I've only ever seen people own one gym, and owning one gym seems like such a monumental task.
It is.
How is it that you feel you can open a second gym and maintain the quality?
I have good people.
Okay, so that's fair, but like, there's only one of you.
Yeah, there's only one of me. I agree.
Are you gonna like switch like this location, that location? I'll be doing this or that, or will you have the home location, and then someone else will kind of run the operations of location 2?
That second part.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, then you're gonna need a business partner too. Like, who do you trust?
Yeah, exactly, and that's the hard part: is who do I trust? Exactly.
How would you do that? Franchise, equity?
Probably equity. So my my jiu-jitsu instructor JW, he has, God, I don't know how many gyms now.
Yeah.
Right, and he kind of sets it up like that, where like they
own a portion of it.
And then they work.
Then they got skin in the game.
Yeah, and then they got skin in the game, and I'm like, wow, that guy does it right. I mean, he really does. Nobody's as business savvy as that guy.
Phil's gym, is that kind of how he has it? It's like under JW, and he's got equity.
Under JW, yep, and all that stuff. You know, so yeah, they've got a good system going there, and I'm gonna try and replicate it.
God bless.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. I have to get I have a number in mind, to where
with the second gym. Here's the other thing I wanted to say, because like this is the difficulty in it.
Yeah,
I think that doing an MMA gym is just so hard because you have to bring in so much talent of variety, right? So like, I don't want to belittle this by saying this, like, but maybe this is kind of an easier concept to do in jiu-jitsu, because if you're JW and you guys coming up under you, eventually you'll get the black belts, and then those black belts will be credentialed enough to open up their own gym. Easy peasy. Equity ownership. I even help you out with like some of the business, maybe the location, what have you. But MMA is like, okay, I mean, you have stand-up coaches, you have wrestling coaches, because like, you know that like, yes, you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but you're not a black belt in boxing, a black belt in wrestling, a black belt in this, that, or the other. So like, even if you were to do a second gym and have like this person or persons, I mean, that's still, I feel like MMA is such a monumental task to overcome.
Yeah, it is. You'd have to get someone that's pretty well versed in all of it. I mean, that's how I'm able to do it, because I can cover for striking coaches, I can cover for wrestling coaches, because, you know, may not be an expert in any of them, but proficient enough.
But you can cover a class or two.
Cover classes, yeah. And it's just finding the good people and then training them up. I mean, that's really what I did in this. You know, we trained everybody up. Like, everybody got trained up to the position that they were in. You know, with the exception of, like, you know, Jake and JP, they were with me like the whole time. But everybody, like, some of my best instructors have been like, all right, we're gonna start from the bottom. I'm gonna train you from white belt. You're gonna get to a really proficient level, and now you're in charge of this class. You know, and that's really the model that I do, like a lot of internal stuff, because you can't externally get anybody, because you can't put an ad wanted for a jiu-jitsu coach, and, you know.
Well, here's the other question I'm going to ask you. When you're talking about, like, equity ownership with, like, an individual or whatever, the difficulty then stems also from, like, you never really want to get to the point where you're asking someone else.
Yeah.
Do you have guys that are asking you? Like okay.
No, not yet. No, not yet. I mean, this is probably like 3 to 5 years.
This is very like, forgive me, because, like, I think to myself, like, logically, I never want to talk somebody into being a business partner.
Yeah, never.
I want someone to come to me with, like, that gumption, that drive, and be like, hey, I think I can do this. I want to do this with you. I'm like, okay, well, let's
absolutely,
let's look at what that would look like. You know,
absolutely.
But I don't want to have to, like, convince someone, like, hey, you should open a gym under me. You know what I mean?
You know, I've always been pretty keep it in the family too. You know, so, you know, my brother trains, so that's always been something. Yeah, younger. So that's always something I've been interested in.
How's he doing, man? How old is he now?
Awesome. He's 23 now, 22.
Has he expressed interest in possibly?
You know, he's still in college. So
what's he studying?
Yeah, biology. Ooh. So, you know, that transfers over really well. You know, my journalism degree, my journalism degree, really.
I'll break your arm and then write about it.
Yep. There we go. I'm like, I can read the news really well. Yeah, but, you know, those are in the future. I mean, right now the drive is really the main gym where I'm at, and getting it to, you know, the dollar amount a month that I want to get it to before I even think of doing anything like that for real. But that is something that drives me. You know, I'm thinking like, oh, I want to keep growing, and not ever stop. Well, maybe one day stop, but not anytime soon.
I was going to say, because then it gets to the point where you're kind of like diluted, though, right? Because then you become like a
Gracie Baja.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it.
Allegedly.
Listen, when you start selling blue belts online, let me know.
Yeah, right? Yep. So that's that. I mean, that's what keeps me going, you know. And then just I want to be recognized as being really good at what I do. So
I think
we've had a great amount of success, but you know, there are other guys out there that have done more. So, you know, you got to keep going.
Yeah, but it's a weird. I was actually, you know what? I was on the phone with Drew.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, maybe I was leaving Shamrock FC weigh-ins, and I was on my way to Texas Roadhouse for, like, you know, the post weigh-in meal with, like, some of the guys from the gym, and we were just talking about I haven't talked to Drew in a minute, so, like, a lot of it was just kind of like, how you doing? How's the kids? You know what I mean? Things like that. But then we were talking about, did you guys have anybody on the card? Does St. Charles have anybody on the card? Does Eric Steenberg have anybody on the card?
Yeah.
We're basically talking about all the gyms and, like, whether or not they have anybody on the card. And we were just kind of going down the rabbit hole of, like, this gym does this well, this gym does that well. And I think there's been a consolidation of gyms. Like, I remember when I was coming up, they had Burgers, you had MCS, all these other gyms. And I know Jared's still doing the thing now again with the Eagle gym. But when it comes to the numbers of gyms, they've never been lower. But when it comes to the consistency or the quality of them, I think they've never been higher.
Yeah. And that's how business works, right? You know, it's just like
consolidate and integrate.
You know, and just survival of the fittest kind of thing as time goes on. And some people lose passion, you know. MMA is hard to make money off of.
I would say it's almost impossible.
Yeah. You got to have a good system, and you can't try and just coach fighters. That's another thing. And that's what a lot of guys want to do, is they just want to coach fighters. It's just like, no, you have to have a passion for the guys who want to come in and just hit pads and work out and be a part of a community. So the community building process is like a huge thing, right? And if you don't do that, then you're not gonna have a good business model, in my opinion. I mean, that's why jiu-jitsu schools do so well, in my opinion, is because they don't even really pressure people to compete. They just go in there and, like, especially nowadays, with a lot of Gen Z young men, like, whoa, what is masculinity? It's just like, just come hang out with a bunch of guys at the gym, do something that's productive, athletic, and bond with the people around you. Really.
Do you see that shift?
Yes.
I'm sure you have a bunch of people that come through the door, right?
Yeah.
From like young women, older men, what have you.
My demographic. Have
you seen the shift in men? I guess is what I'm trying to ask you.
My demographic is teenage boys. That's my primary demographic in my gym.
At the gym.
Yes, that is the overwhelming current demographic that I work with.
Very impressionable, very young, very dumb.
Between 17 and like 23. And you'd be like, oh, how do you make money off of them? Hey, we're in Lake St. Louis and they have parents.
Yeah, fair. It's all about demographics.
Yeah, right. It's all about demographics. Demographics are destiny. So it's like.
But do you feel like you have like a responsibility to, okay, so this is going to be kind of a multi-tiered question, right? So obviously your main responsibility, they're coming in here to learn a skill set of like self-defense and martial art. That's your responsibility. However, because we're talking about culture and growing these people, do you also feel like you have a responsibility to kind of show them, I want to be careful. I don't want to say like how to be a man. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to do that. But like they might come in and these next generations of young men don't have necessarily the same masculine tendencies that previous generations have had.
But I will say I've seen a shift.
If
we're talking culturally, I've seen a huge shift actually. If we're talking about like 4 to 5 years ago, I'd get a teenage boy that would walk in to my gym and not be able to maintain consistent eye contact with me. Clearly, like
pre-COVID,
pre-COVID, and then a little bit during COVID. Where like I just think that the culture beat masculinity down for such a long time. So I'd get that coming in, but now that is not what I'm getting at all. Well, I get teenage boys that are like ready to go, and they don't even care about fighting. They just want to come in and train and just be around like that energy, that go after it energy. And they're all like going off to college and stuff like that. Like I said, most of them will never step inside of a cage, or maybe they'll do a jiu-jitsu match or an IKF tournament or something like that. But they're there for the energy. And I'm like,
it's also tough though, Matt, because like, for me, I remember when I was a young kid, there was like a lot of skepticism that I had within myself of like, can I do this? Can I go to school? Like I was so, when I was 18, 19, my main thing, the anxiety that I had the majority of my life was just to not be a loser.
Yeah.
I didn't know what shape or form that was going to take. It was just like, okay, go to school so I'm not a loser, and get a degree so I'm not a loser, and get a job so I'm not a loser. And I got into martial arts, but then I was like, well, okay, now I have to train hard because I want to win. I don't want to like be a loser. Everything was like, don't be a loser, Arion. And then when I got like 23, I had graduated, got a job. I think I was like 9-0 in fighting, and I was like, okay, I'm not a loser, or at the very least, if I am, I could have been a bigger loser. You know what I mean? Do you think that some of these kids now just don't care anymore, in the sense that the chips could be so stacked against them? Because I do think they have it pretty fucking hard.
Yeah.
I think navigating the waters of like technology, politics, finance. I mean, we talk about like how like housing and stuff like that is unaffordable for our generation. What the fuck is it going to be for theirs? Yeah. If we don't change anything about this, guess what? It's only going to get worse, right? It's only going to get worse. So like, in a lot of ways, we are the tip of the iceberg. The things that we feel is the tip of that iceberg, and these kids are going to have to come in for like the fucking body of it. So like, I don't envy that position. No. And I think there are course-correcting measures that can take place to perhaps prevent some of that pain. But dude, I don't know about you, but every single one of my friends from ages, because I coach high schoolers now, so like from age 15 to 35, I tell them, get ready, boys. We're about to pay for the last 20 years of retardation. Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad. Because it's like you did nothing this has nothing to do with any of the decisions that you've ever made in your life, but you're still going to have to pay that bill with us. Yeah, I think millennials and Gen Z probably are the unlucky pack. We say that, but we never had a world war, so it's like... Yeah, of course. That's why. You don't have a good world war? What are you doing with yourself? There's a generation of men that was like scared to step on a beach. Yeah, right. God bless. Scared to step outside, Yeah, I don't want to be like the boo-hoo, woe is me, but like it is really... It's a time to be alive, man.
Yeah. I have a lot of optimism, though. I really
Just
do.
in general, America, the world.
America, for sure. Absolutely. Pretty much the Western Hemisphere, just in general. A lot of optimism.
I do too.
Demographically, and
where does that optimism stem from? Does it stem from elected leaders? Does it stem from the nuance that you witness day to day? Like you were saying, the change in the young men?
Yeah. I mean, culturally, that's one thing, but I'm even talking like, even if there wasn't like a huge cultural shift, I just think that America's in a pretty good position. Canada and Mexico are probably in a pretty good position, just based of how goated our geography is. I mean,
well, yeah.
And how I just don't think that Asia's demographics are sustainable. So all of our manufacturing and stuff has to go somewhere. So
let's break into that. No, I'm gonna love this. Let's break into that. Let's just get the demographics. I'm assuming you're talking about the aging population of like Japan, and I'm assuming you're talking about the birth rates of both Chinese and Japanese cultures. Simultaneously, I'm assuming that you're also talking about the governments that they have so chosen. I always said that the war or the battle between like America, Russia, China, India, and all these other people, India is actually the one that I could see actually having true. Not conflict, but good competition with. Yeah. The problem with China and Russia is, okay, cool, like your systems will implode. Because what happens when Putin goes under? Like if you don't have that facilitation for the next leader, say what you want about our system of government, at least we have a peaceful transition of power. Even J6 and all this other shit. As far as I'm concerned, Biden served 4 years, right? And then Trump came back in. What better example of a peaceful transition of power than that? Yep. Good luck with China. Yeah. Good luck with Russia. What are you guys going to do?
Well, they've gotten rid of any competition,
Yes.
They both got rid of all the competition. There's no way that there's...
Communism has never worked.
Even if they didn't, though, just the geographic and demographic situations they're both going through are just... are horrible. Like China doesn't have the ability to export its own energy. It produces a lot of energy, but it uses it all up, and then it needs more from elsewhere. And it's on the longest supply chain.
As of today, but they're also the ones that are really pioneering and really pushing for next generation nuclear reactors.
Yeah, that is
true. In the next 10 to 15 years, by estimates.
How long is 10 to 15 years? That's still pretty long for what they're going through right now.
You're partners with Russia, and they're what is their main export?
But are they actual partners with Russia?
I think I say this all the time on this podcast. I align my interest with the interests of other people, and then I trust them to do what's in their best interest. And I'm very rarely ever surprised.
When you've got a geographical region that is in dispute between the two of them, then it gets a little...
Are you talking about...
I'm talking about Manchuria. I'm talking about Upper Manchuria. They both have land claims to it. They've fought historic wars over it multiple times.
I think so long as America is so hostile towards both, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, you're absolutely correct. That there should be a natural conflict that arises between these two superpowers. However, America comes in as like the bigger bully from the West, so then they kind of rally together against us. But,
And then you got China's overbuild. It's just so... Their problems
how about the infrastructure implosion in China right now from basically like building these empty houses in order to sell real estate and prop up a market that doesn't really exist. You want to talk about a real estate bubble? Nothing worse than China right now.
Potentially 200% overbuilt.
Yes.
It's so I just don't really believe, and I'm not very hawkish with China.
You can say the same thing about America with $40 trillion deficit.
That's true.
The only difference between America and some of the issues that China and them have is that like we're transparent with ours, where they're hiding it. Yeah. So it's like I agree with you in the sense of optimism solely because of the next generation and not really the previous ones. Yeah. Because even in some of the things that I'm seeing today is like more of the same. Luckily for us, the founding fathers were infinitely wise and created a system of government that is the greatest ever seen on the face of the earth. God bless. So I do have faith in our nation, but I also am curious to see there could be so much more shit that happens, especially in the next like 4 to 8 years. Yeah. Because I mean, these guys are also getting older. Putin's getting older. Xi Jinping's getting older. And if there's anything I know about
populations are getting older too.
Their populations are getting older. So is ours.
Yeah. But we have net immigration though. That's really what
we do have immigration.
That's the difference. And you got to be smart with that. So
That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
It's like we are because we also don't have the birth rates up to par. Like essentially, you need a birth rate of at least 2.1 per woman during her fertile period of life. Obviously, because after that, can't have children. And I think America right now is like 1.8, 1.9, or maybe just shy of 2, which is like not up to snuff for the replacement rate. You need at least 2.1 because obviously you need 2 kids per woman because you have the people that are dying, and this is going to sound kind of shitty to say, but like the mortality rate of children. You have to have that buffer of like that 0.1 because some kids don't live to adulthood to have kids of their own. You know what I mean? You can supplant that through internal, incentives. I think things like the child tax credit and all these other things are easy ways to do
propaganda.
Propaganda.
It gets a bad rap, the word propaganda.
Well, you can't legislate how people like what people should do. I can't create laws to make you have a kid, but what I can do is I can incentivize you. Like, hey, if you don't want to have kids, fine. But if you choose to have kids, I'll give you $6,000 of your dollars back every year.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Like I don't see people lining up to have kids for the $6,000 that they're going to have back every year.
Yeah.
But it is a nice to have. At the end of the year, you're like, oh my God, I'm drowning because of this, that, or the other. Man, I really thank God I'm getting this money back, my money. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, you say that at the same time, and I can't help but look at the world and notice that poor people are the ones having all the kids still. And pretty much everywhere you go, all through Africa, or even the more conservative states have higher birth rates. But
surely you understand that there's like a reason for that.
Yeah,
they have a whole lot of free time.
Yeah, and I do really think.
And what do people do when they have free time and they're poor and they got no options? And
well,
it's drugs. What are the 3 highest dopamine receptors in the brain cost from? Food, drugs, sex. They don't have the money for food.
Yeah, but I mean, you can deal with sex with birth control.
Absolutely correct.
It just gets to my point. What I'm saying is that.
Well, don't you think there's a correlation between like the demographics of your earning and your intelligence?
Yeah.
The smarter you are, chances are the more you'll earn. So I'm not trying to sound like an asshole.
No, I know.
Maybe you're poor for a reason.
I guess my overarching point is that like the word propaganda, that people don't like that, but propaganda promoting a nuclear family and having lots of kids is far more prevalent in conservative areas than it is in more liberal areas. That's why they have a what is it 25% higher fertility rate than.
I would even go as far as to say the liberal way of life is not conducive to repopulation.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to sound like rude when I say this, but like when you're the people pushing the trans movement and the LGBTQ movement, like I'm all for live and let live, but surely you understand that if like more and more people are gay, they're gonna have less kids, and like if your group is correlated with the gay and the trans, and this group is correlated with monogamy and
having lots of children.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's like, and that's not even.
It leads to expected outcomes.
Yeah, and I think that's actually, in my opinion, the most pressing issue on the planet right now.
Population
is population. Yes, I think that, and I'm talking about long term over a very long period of time. I think that you need to have a base under. At the bottom of the pyramid to support the top of the pyramid when they get older. So if more and more people are living off of the government as they get older, and there are less people to help pay for that, I think that's a big issue.
Agreed. I understand where you're going from, but 100% it's fiscal responsibility.
Yeah. I mean that too, yeah, but
because like you could have all these you could have a bunch of people having kids, and like the younger labor pool helps support a lot of the social programs through their tax dollars to take care of the growing elderly. But the problem is when you have $40 trillion of debt, that hole is so deep. Yeah. And then you have to ask yourself, like, I've been actually contemplating this myself. Is like, is it fair to tell people that they have to work longer to pay for the Social Security and the Medicaid and the Medicare of the elderly who hold the majority of the wealth in this country? Yeah, they're the ones they're the asset class. Mm-hmm. They're the ones with the homes, the businesses, the gold, the whatever. Mm-hmm. Now you're asking this kid who's 19 years old, 20 years old, can't rub 2 pennies to his name. Like, hey, kid, work your ass off so we can take 40% of your check. So grandpa and grandma can live through Social Security.
And then we're going to gouge your inheritance when they try to give it to you.
Yes, and then when it's your turn to receive it, you're going to get wrecked.
Yep, exactly. So,
because we tap into Social Security every time we ever need liquid cash.
Yeah, but I mean,
which should be a crime.
Yeah, it should be. But I mean, the I mean, I definitely think the demographic situation is the worst possible outcome for, China, Russia.
Yes, they are
Korea,
far
Japan,
worse than
far
we are.
worse.
And they also have a lot of financial burdens
Yeah.
that they don't talk about. We, like I said earlier, we are transparent with ours.
They also had literal propaganda, especially in China, for them not to have children. And
they had
it was
the one
legally enforced.
They had the dumbest piece of legislation ever passed.
Yes.
Yeah, they literally had.
Exactly. They had the one-child tax policy, and the one-child tax policy was, when you start hearing some of the stories that were happening in the early 2000s of like parents that would have girls, and because they wanted boys so badly to carry on the family name, would like abort or have them and then give them up for adoption so that they could have one kid and be a boy. You also had the thing in China right now. I don't know if you know this, but even though you have like the one-child policy has since been revoked and removed, and now they have incentives in place for having as many kids as possible. You still have the gender gap is like somewhere between like 16 or 17%.
Yeah, and they
more
usually
men
live
than
in
women.
different places too.
What?
They live in different areas too.
Yeah.
My brother lives in China. So
Which one?
Chris.
No shit.
Yeah, Chris lives in China. He's got a wife. He's got a kid.
Are they Chinese?
Yeah, and he teaches English to
Traitor.
rich Chinese. Rich Chinese. Yeah, I know, right? I tell him all the time.
Him and John Cena have a lot in common.
I call him. I'm like, hey, Wink, if you want us to come get you, man.
Was he ex-military or?
No, he studied Mandarin in college, and he said he was like, the only real way to learn this for real is to go do it. So he went and did it, and he's lived there for like 7 years now.
That's the first story I've heard of an American going to China. Does he like it?
I loves it.
What's his anecdotal evidence? Is it like, does he want to live there forever?
I don't know. He's a kid now.
Was the kid born over there?
Like we like. Some people look at the Chinese educational system and they're like, wow, they're just so much better than us. But really, like, it lacks
any
all
social
creativity
skills whatsoever.
Well, and creativity, like thinking outside the box, like the stuff that we really do emphasize over here is like the creative thinking and the innovation. They're more of like strict, like military. And, they can't hit the kids anymore, but they do a lot of other shady stuff to get around it. But it is a much different system that you may think is effective for like learning math and science on like a paper level.
It is.
Yeah.
It is the most effective way to do that, but you are absolutely correct at the same point. And the goal is, or the question is, what is the goal of our education?
Yeah.
And the whole thing, the whole education system that we pushed post-World War II was in conjunction with a lot of entrepreneurs, billionaires at the time, that wanted to push for a more educated workforce for their factories and for industrial base. And tell me who makes everything in the world right now?
Yeah, China.
So
right now.
For right now.
I think that goalpost is shifting pretty rapidly.
It's changing in real time.
Yeah.
But before we get to that topic, if the same is true for America, then it has to be true for China. So like if we built our education system specifically to design it to create, conveyor belt industrial employees, put part A with part B, and I want you smart enough to be able to do this job, but not so smart that you're like, actually looking up and realizing like, oh, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Yeah. Put that on steroids in China. I mean, they have, correct me if I'm wrong, can you Google this real quick? They had the worst instance of suicide during COVID. China did. And here's the thing. The craziest part of it is, that they're going to going back to propaganda, they're going to fudge the numbers as much as possible and talk about like, no, we don't have this, that, or the other, and be as fictitious as possible.
Well, everything in China, most things in China
it's a lie. The majority of it is a lie.
Yeah, which is why like when anyone brings up anything positive about it, I'm like when DeepSeek came out, I was like, let's wait on that on if they didn't use any NVIDIA chips.
No, they did.
They did.
But here's the other thing though too. It also shows like the insane way in which we're tackling AI. The fact that we even are talking about it being open source is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because like there's no other technology. Okay, why don't we do that with our military? Like Boeing just got that billion-dollar contract or multi-billion-dollar contract for the F-47. Okay, if we're gonna have open source AI, might as well just do open source our next generation fighter jets that can apparently fly with drones. I'm not 100% sure how that's gonna happen, but anyway, it's like you have this cutting edge technology that can very well change the trajectory of humanity. And we're going to say like, hey, everybody come on in. It's like you can have DeepSeek come in and be on par with any sort of like ChatGPT or Gronk or whatever, because it's going off of the backs of all the work that we've already put in. And then to your point as well is like, you know, you could put some sort of embargo that you want. It was the same shit that happened with Russia and oil. It's like, oh, we're gonna, you know, put sanction on Russian oil. So like all the Russian tankers basically just paint over the Russian letters, and now it's like, you know, Ukrainian oil, and everyone's still fucking buying it because it's a global market. Yep. It's like, it's just, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. When will we realize that like we bet on globalism?
Yeah,
and globalism's here.
Yes,
we can't turn back that clock now. It took 40 years to get here.
Fortunately, globalism relies on a lot of other people acting the right way.
Yes.
So
that's the thing.
There was a rise in China, but it's also saying there was a rise in China, but there was also a rise globally.
Yeah, but China had the number one, like, they were the number one source of suicide. Now, the problem is they have also a population density of over 1 billion.
The problem is I'm also seeing a rate of a 2% increase to a 40% increase.
Oh, range, yeah. Well,
listen,
Chinese propaganda. The delta is 2% to 40. Yeah. So let me put it this way: what makes you think it's 40%?
Yeah.
2% to 80%.
It's like, I'm not.
Dude, you had videos of like Chinese people being like forcibly stuck in their homes. They could not leave because the government was at their door, preventing them from leaving. People were on their balconies like shouting, like, "Let us out!"
Starving.
Talking about like we were talking about earlier about like competition. We're not competing with them. Mm-mm. We're not competing with any of these fucks.
No, we're not competing with
because it's a mile run. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
Our system wins.
Yeah.
There's no Chinese dream. There's no Russian dream. There's no Indian dream. There's only one American dream. And to your point about immigration, we will need to create a stronger. I'm all for deportations of illegals.
Yeah,
I am. And I haven't heard a good reason to keep them that's not like, oh, we need a slave class. Yeah. Okay, Democrats that think like, oh,
that's crazy.
Well, who's going to pick your cabbage? And I'm like, that's the same shit the South said during the Civil War. Yeah. Check your history.
You're going to pay them under minimum wage because they're undocumented? Like,
I'll go a step further. Like the H-1Bs as well.
Yeah.
Everyone's up in arms about the H-1Bs. I think the H-1B is the same thing. Like, you cannot tell me that the Republicans, you cannot tell me that you are the party of, you know, stopping illegal immigration because of this, you know, obfuscating this and taking advantage of that. But then you have the H-1B. I have seen H-1Bs used as a cast to essentially have slave labor, but like higher level slave labor. There was a gentleman that I worked with for a certain company who was here on H-1B who would work like 65-hour weeks every fucking week. And he was a hyper intelligent individual. But could someone else specifically an American, do his job? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The reason why he would work 65-hour weeks is because the ability for him to stay in America was directly correlated or tied to his employment with this company because he had an H-1B. So like if he lost his job, or they're like, oh, well, you didn't work 70 hours this week, we might let you go. He's got to pick up his whole fucking family and go back to home country. He can't stay here. So like my whole thing is like, if we're going to fix immigration for like the poor and the people that are trying to seek asylum and all this other shit, fix it across the board. If you're smart enough to get an H-1B, why would we ever allow you to go back to another country? Why don't we keep you here? If you're smart enough to get an H-1B, you should get a green card immediately on entering with an H-1B so that if you do lose your job or if you know, let's say the job was not what you thought it would be and you wanted to leave and go apply for something else, you have the right to. Because right now, you have, through the H-1B, a license to keep high-level slave labor.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I do think it is on the far ends, the weakest arguments for both sides. You know, like it
falls on its face.
Yeah, you can't, like the conservatives saying like no immigration. It's like, dude, we're going to put ourselves in the
we're
same
going to implode
situation
as a society with no immigration.
China. Yeah, you're going to put the same situation as China, Japan, South Korea, and the Democrats like bringing them all in. Like, okay, now we just got slave labor. And
it's like why is it one or the other? Why can't we find something? Yeah. I was telling my conservative friends who are like super hardcore MAGA, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm all for the deportations, but like you're also going to have to expand the number of legal immigration into this country because that demand is there. Yeah. And you know, you can sell $5 million gold cards to like all the wealthy. Yeah. Then you have to think about how people are getting wealthy outside of this country. Yeah. I bet you they don't follow the same human rights laws that we do.
Is that where tariffs start to come in?
What do you think about tariffs?
I mean, I don't know. I want to hear. You know, I didn't get to hear your rant about it. I saw a ranting about the rant, but I didn't hear the rant on tariffs.
It wasn't even a rant. It was Justin King basically like made a post on Facebook and was like, I'm worried that the tariffs are going to like crush and eliminate the middle class, and that this could be like the worst thing that happens. And here's my synopsis on it, and I'll kind of repeat myself, maybe with a little bit more nuance. In isolation, tariffs will increase inflation. They will. It is it's an inflation tool on purpose. The goal of the original tariffs were to essentially safeguard the industrial base of America. So when you have China, for instance, and their steel companies, where because they don't have the consumptive capabilities as America, and their currency is not as strong as America's currency, their labor source is by proxy cheaper. So like, if I'm a steel company in America and you're a steel company in China, and you can produce of similar quality steel, maybe 5-10% degradation in quality, but 50% savings from just a cost-benefit analysis, how can I compete? The original tariffs were used as kind of like a safeguard of industry within a nation's borders to say, hey, listen, you're absolutely right. They don't play by the same labor laws that we have. They don't have the same codes of conduct and all these other things that you have to abide by. You know, the taxes you have to pay and all these other things, they don't have to do it. They're not playing the same game. We duly noted. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply a tariff on this class or this industry or this good or service in order to make things competitive.
Yeah.
However, the problem with globalization is over the last 30, 40 years, we basically shipped all of our industrial capabilities and all our manufacturing to other countries, not just China, India, Mexico, you name it. Vietnam, or any of the Peloponnesian Islands. If the labor was cheaper, that's basically what globalization was. Yeah. It was an effort by U.S. industry to outsource the labor pool so that the goods and services could be at the cheapest price they could. And we benefited from that as Americans. Yeah. Post-World War II, you saw the greatest expansion of the middle class ever, and that's how you got the baby boomers.
Do you think that was actually for lower prices for goods, though?
No, I think it was 100% to spread capitalism.
Yeah, I think
and
so
Western ideals.
Is defeat the Soviet Union.
But I think two things can be true at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's binary. I think you can have at the macro, I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. government would allow for certain industries, for certain companies to expand past its borders in that sense for what you're saying, to essentially combat communism. Yeah. However, at the micro, I don't think, the CEO of GM or whatever was like necessarily worried about like.
Well, I mean, we benefited, the consumer benefited with consumption, but you see wages go like this when that happened.
Well, of course, because it's a short term, right? In the short term, everybody feels it because your consumptive capabilities were already so high. Your salaries were so high comparative to the other labor pools from other countries. So for the first 10 years, you saw the price of everything drastically drop, but your salary may have not increased, but because the price of everything is dropping, you felt like you were richer. And that's why you had the expansion of the middle class. That's why we had stories of a family of 4 could live off just dad's salary.
Just dad.
The problem with that, though, is it's going to inch up. It's going to grow. It's going to inch up. And the problem is you have to start thinking about it logically. And we'll get back to tariffs in a second. But by proxy, the middle class exists because it's the median of the population's earnings, right? You'll have the most amount of humans in the middle class. You don't want the most amount of people in the lower class or the higher class, because then you're going to create a schism in society. Yeah. It makes sense. That's why we always say the best countries are the ones with a healthy modern middle class. Yeah. You'll always have the outliers.
1950s United States.
Exactly, the baby boomers.
Yeah.
The problem is you're eliminating a labor source. You can't tell everybody be an entrepreneur to make ends meet. You can't tell everybody just code, because you're going to inflate these industries. We told all these coal miners just learn to code, and literally 2 years later, Meta and Amazon and all these tech companies are doing mass layoffs because they don't need all these people. And then when you're talking about AI, the next AI revolution, Mop, I haven't written a single line of code in the last 6 months.
And I haven't done my own marketing in the last 4 months.
You know what I mean? It's dude, we're going to outsource as well.
Yeah.
The issue is you need a structured labor source for labor. So you need the jobs for labor that don't necessarily, and I don't want to sound rude when I say this or I'm talking down to people, You need the $60,000 a year jobs with like benefits and a pension. You need that shit for a thriving middle class. You eliminated the pension. You eliminated any sort of manufacturing and infrastructure built out in the U.S. You eliminated a modern educational system that actually generated critical thinkers. And then you outsourced everything. Yeah. Well, yeah, no wonder you're having an implosion in this country. And then on top of all of it, because now, the American populace is getting uppity, you want illegal immigration so that you can keep these people under your thumb and boot to artificially maintain these low prices. That's what you're trying to do. Because deep down the system is broken.
Which,
now.
I mean, the increase in prices does not mean nearly as much if the increase of wages outpaces it.
You're playing a losing game because inflation is a 100% guarantee. Yeah. Unless you have like deflation and all that, but that's a completely different bag of worms that we don't even want to talk about.
Nobody wants that.
So we've established that ideally the money supply should grow at a rate of about 2% per year.
Yeah.
That means if your wages are going to stay static, no matter what you do to maintain lower prices, eventually they'll eclipse. Yeah. And then what are you going to do? And that's what we're feeling now. To go back to your talk about tariffs, in isolation, are they inflationary? Yes, but we are not in isolation. And you have to look at this as a long game. We have established that our labor source cannot compete with other nations because they are just cheap. Well, you have Uyghur Muslims that are working for literally their slave labor. They're not paid. Yeah. How can you compete with slave labor?
I mean, I want to talk about a caveat to that, which would be, they're cheaper now, but when the manufacturing base of China becomes so bad because of how demographically bad they are, and all of a sudden all your factories are still there and you haven't put them back on American soil, all right, well, now their manufacturing just skyrocketed. No. The prices are going to skyrocket anymore.
You know what they'll do? What they're doing now.
Yeah,
they'll move to India.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You need to move them around, but you know what? There's nowhere that's really amazing right now for the long term in terms of birth rates outside of Africa. But you do have
the Muslim nations as well.
Yeah, but even there's, as they start to industrialize and get more modern, it's just gonna.
But surely you understand that there's like something to the Western way of life and like the nuance of a well-meaned life. And I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud. It's like, do you think that if you gave? I mean, I'll use the United American Emirates or the United Arab Emirates or any of the Middle East nations. It's like they are flush with cash from oil.
Yeah.
Where's their renaissance?
Yeah.
Where's their revolution?
Well, Saudi Arabia looks like they're trying to do it.
They're trying to do it, but the problem is they're doing it in all the stupidest ways, like
sports
and like
entertainment.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, who have you ever talked to that's like, man, we're gonna go to Dubai to go watch a boxing match? Like no one middle class is gonna do that.
No,
so then you're exclusively talking to like the luxury or a higher demographic of individuals that are more susceptible to luxurious purchases instead of commercial purchases.
Yeah. But I have no problem with manufacturing. Well, a good amount of it going to Mexico. I think the supply line shortens. It's going to make it cheaper to transport goods from place to place, especially because, like I said earlier, our geography is goated. We can go up and down the coastline easy.
Yeah, but you're going to need them to be in America for a multitude of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
So, like everything you said.
You're going to need a lot of them to be in America, yes. But what we want to keep cheap, like things that we really want to keep cheap,
what, avocados?
What are we talking about? Avocados. Your Walmart items that you.
I personally think that we want to insource as much as possible. Yeah. Why can't we grow our own avocados near the southern border? Why can't we do this, that, or the other? Obviously, there's reasons. I'm not an idiot. Like it's
people. The person resource.
I think we've seen the last 40 years of globalization and horizontal integration of markets, and we've seen what it's meant for America and the world.
Yeah.
No one's doing good right now.
Yeah.
No one is. Because we're all playing this game with one another.
We are doing the best, though.
To go back to tariffs, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Let me just finish this thought
Absolutely.
on it. So in isolation, tariffs are inflationary, but they're not in isolation. Tariffs will be the only thing, if coupled with tax reform, that could possibly bring back the manufacturing and the industrial base back to America through one of two ways. Companies will either want to tariff evade by insourcing a lot of the manufacturing or some of the manufacturing capabilities to prevent that tariff, right? Because the tariff is strictly the way the tariffs, this could change in the future, and that's the problem of doing a podcast. As it is today, March 27th, 2025, a lot of them are for exclusionary or retaliatory, or not retaliatory, but commensurate. So like if China has a 200% tariff on this thing with us, then we're going to do a 200% tariff on that same thing, unless you have some sort of that supply chain in America, or you're headquartered in America. So what you're going to start seeing is either people bringing some manufacturing capabilities that weren't previously in America to America, and you're seeing that with a lot of the investments from like the Taiwan chips companies coming and doing some stuff in America. I think that's also like a security thing. So like you'll bring more jobs to America through the act of trying to avoid the tariffs. But even those companies that don't avoid the tariffs and they'll pay them instead, they'll increase the price of their goods and services, which will then allow for American industries to actually once again compete.
Yeah.
Now, in the interim, that still means inflation for the people, because like overnight, everything's going to go up 200, 300% for like the companies. You're going to see that cost on the back end. So how do you kind of recoup that on the short end? Tax reform. Yeah. Something as simple as no tax on tips, or no tax on anybody making 150K or less. Yeah. Because then what you're basically saying is, hey,
maybe no tax on people with 3 or more children.
How about no tax on any American for their income?
Oh, dang.
I would go that far.
Yeah.
Why are you stifling their innovation? Why are you stifling their... We have established that we are a consumer nation. Allow us to consume. We buy the shit from everybody. Okay.
How would you yeah, I largely agree with you.
I don't believe in income tax.
I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna say this is what I want or not like that, but how do you feel about like the, if we're getting into more politics, you've got like Trump's two sides, right? You have your Elon Musk side and you have your Steve Bannon side, right? Yeah. And on the Steve Bannon side, you hear him talk about like, okay, tariffs, amazing, tariff, manufacturing. But then he wants to raise the marginal income tax of people making like $4 or $5 million a year back to the 1950s at 92%.
Yeah, that's insane. So first of all, I think Bannon is actually probably one of the more intelligent political commentators. Okay,
it's crazy, but
crazy, but in terms of like his acute knowledge of like history, and the markets and sociology, Bannon's actually very intelligent.
Because that is what he's talking about is the policy of Dwight Eisenhower in the 1950s. Incredibly successful in a non-global market.
I would go as far as to say that the Republican Party that exists today is not the Republican Party that existed 6 years ago. It is a very progressive party.
Well, the Republican Party.
A lot of their stances were the Democratic stances of 2004.
The Reagan, I think, changed everything. But prior to Reagan, you get Eisenhower and Reagan are like two completely different people. They're similar in many ways, very socially conservative. But you get Eisenhower as like this person who was like really pro like high tax rate unless you pay your people a ton of money. Yeah. There was loopholes, purposeful loopholes
versus incentives.
Yeah.
To go to your question though about like what do I think about like the two parts of the party? Yeah. I think that's what every political party should have. Yeah. You should have a cabinet that is not in lockstep with one another and that actually has like discourse and conflict. Yeah. Because then through that discourse and conflict you'll get better ideas. You need your shitty ideas to be challenged and shot down, and you need your good ideas to be challenged so that they can rise to the occasion. Yeah. So like Elon doesn't spew gold every time he speaks. No. And Steve Bannon isn't always wrong about everything he says. No. And you're going to have to find that equilibrium, that Venn diagram of like where both of you are correct and do those ideas. The problem with the Democratic Party and the problem with Biden was it felt like there was no conflict whatsoever and that everybody was in lockstep with one another. There's no way that can be the case. There's no way that we're right about everything. Then, there has to be some conflict.
Does it make you a little more optimistic when you see like Gavin Newsom come out with his podcast and divert completely from so much of what they... I don't trust him at all. He's one of my least favorite politicians.
I don't trust any politician, red or blue.
Yeah. Obviously.
Their main incentive is maintaining their incentives, right? Yeah. It goes back to my thing of like, I want to align my interests with them and I want them to do what's in their best interest, and then I'll always be positively surprised. I think the Democratic Party we're kind of going a lot of ways, but let's continue. I'm with it. I love this conversation.
I know.
Would you agree that the Democratic Party right now is doing a lot of soul searching?
Absolutely.
The one good thing about this, and I don't think liberals understand this, because like I don't think you're an idiot for being a liberal. I don't think you're an idiot for being a conservative. I think different strokes for different folks. But the one good thing that will happen to liberals through this is your party is going to have to do a much deeper introspective, and they're going to have to change. Because their way of thinking was not they lost the popular vote for the first time since Bush.
Since Bush too.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy, right? For the last 20 years plus, 20 plus years. the Democratic Party is going to have to do like a rebrand similar to how the Republican Party did. Now, the Republican Party's the catalyst for that rebrand was actually Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump he forced that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you go back to 2016,
Paul Ryan.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah.
That was the Republican Party.
For those that don't understand, there was not. Yeah, there was not much different from blue and red back then, other than like gay marriage, right?
It's just like when Donald Trump started talking about immigration, even the Republicans were like, whoa,
Yeah.
wait a second.
Yeah. So what's happening now in real time is happening to the Democratic Party. The only difference is, and what I worry about is, where Donald Trump was the catalyst of change for the Republican Party, there was a figure to rally behind. Mm-hmm. Right now, if you see in the Democratic Party, they don't really have a figure. Yeah. They're kind of like, and duly noted, they just lost 2 months ago, so give them some time. I don't think it's going to be Bernie, because he's just too old.
Can't be AOC either.
It would be an immense mistake to make it AOC.
Yeah, a huge
by
mistake.
Virtue of just simply IQ.
It seems like Bernie is also well aware of that, because he will not make her
yes.
He just won't do it. He gets asked, he's like, oh, there's lots of good people.
I don't think it could be the swamp like Hakeem Jeffries.
And I don't think it can be Gavin Newsom
And
either.
I don't think it could be Gavin Newsom. I will say this, though. I don't think I've ever seen someone as politically gifted as Gavin Newsom.
He's amazing.
Outside of Obama back in 08.
And I would say outside of like, it's
like outside he's such a good he has such good oratory skills.
Outside of Trump as well, but for an opposite reason. It's like from the complete other end of the spectrum. It's like Gavin Newsom is like the perfect politician, and Trump's so politically savvy because he's not.
Yes.
And it's just like that contrast would be interesting.
I think right now the Democratic Party is going through a lot of growing pains, and they're going to have to shift and mold and change, and I think that will lead to better policies and better politics.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be like a blowout in the midterms.
Yeah.
I want the Democratic Party to always hold the Republicans accountable.
I think there might need
and
to
I
be
always
one,
want the Republicans to hold the Democrats accountable.
I think there might need to be one, though, because I think a good portion of the Democrats are still like holding on to the Biden-Obama
I'll tell you what, man.
structure. And if there's a blowout in the midterms, I think they're like completely restructured. Jon Stewart probably running in 2020.
Have you ever seen an administration in the first 2 months be this busy?
I don't think so. No,
not in my lifetime.
Oh. Well, I think part of that is because
Obama, when he first got into office with the executive orders that he did, quantitative easing, basically getting everything ready for the bailout in 2008. That was a different time. That was like when we were headed for a depression, not a recession. This one's more of like a mandate shift. Like he could have in his first 100 days been a little bit more lackadaisy, been a little bit more safe. If you would have asked me, like politically, I would have said, hey, peace in the Middle East and immigration reform. You do those two things, you're gonna have a bull run in the midterms, and then you do tax reform and all these other things. They're basically trying to do all of it all at the same time.
Obama was very borderline antisocial, I think, when it came to like geopolitical issues. You know, he just kind of kept the George Bush structure going while he concentrated mostly on like domestic things. But
yeah. Listen,
I don't have the highest marks for him, to be completely honest.
I think it's also easy to say in hindsight, right? Because you look at the historical facts and you go, this is where he went wrong based on this. I think at the time, what Obama and his administration did regarding the financial crash of 2008 was what we needed when we needed it in terms of bailout. However, the ramifications of not holding anybody accountable and not necessarily changing the paradigm, that was the great mistake, because right now we're living through it again. There's a commercial real estate bubble right now. I would even say that there's a residential real estate bubble right now. When you have asset classes ballooning 40, 50, 60% in the last 4 years, that's not assets appreciating in value. That's a bubble.
Yeah.
To go back to the tariff thing, and then to go back to this, if you have tariffs in isolation, inflationary. If you couple that with tax reform, you give more people of their money right now to combat the increase in prices. So I say, hey, you're going to have $5,000 a year in extra bullshit, but I'm going to give you your $10,000 back, so you're still going to have the delta of $5,000. And then, in terms of the revenue that the federal government gets, it'll still be kind of net neutral, because instead of getting the taxes from you, you will buy the good, the tariff will be paid, the government gets its money, everybody's kind of hunky-dory. Yeah. No one really loses. The only difference is your money kind of goes through like an extra channel, right? Instead of paying income tax, you're paying for it when you buy eggs, when you buy milk. And that will allow, over the course of time, for American industries to re-establish themselves as a manufacturing footprint and bring back those like middle tier construction, manufacturing, industrial base back to America. You'll see a resurgence of the Rust Belt. You'll see a resurgence of like rural America. I forget the name of the, Tony, do me a favor and Google Taiwan chip company that's going to do an investment. I think it's like $100 billion.
TMC.
TMC, thank you. Where are they doing it? They're doing it in Alabama,
Arizona.
Right? Arizona, forgive me. Oh, swing state, even smarter.
Yeah.
Even smarter.
Of course.
Yeah, that's a good move, Don.
Well, plus Arizona is where most of.
Well, I didn't know if it was going to be like the Rust Belt or swing state. Swing state's obviously the more politically advantageous one, but it's like they're also putting these investments in certain strategic locations for the longevity of their party. I think it's all genius. I really do. If they execute.
Yeah.
If they can do the tariffs and they have the means to do tax reform, you have the House, the Senate, and the executive. If you execute properly, this could be looked at as like one of the genius moments in political history. But if they fuck up, this will look back and it's 1 or 0 right now, because like either you mess this up and you're gonna leave a bad taste in everybody's mouths with tariffs and all these other things, and then the only conversation we will ever have is about income tax, or you knock this out of the park.
Yep.
And we never have a discussion of income tax ever again, because we realize that that's the most inferior way for a government to generate its revenue, is siphoning it from its own constituents. And that's my thing about like income tax. It's like we never had an income tax until after the Civil War, and we had a 1% just to recoup the coffers.
And it was only for rich people.
It was only for land, what you would consider wealthy,
really
agreed.
Wealthy people.
And more importantly, once the coffers were back to a neutral, like there was no deficit, they took away the income tax.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't need an income tax.
And even in the 1950s, like the marginal income tax, it was marginal. It was only high after it got after a certain amount. Then you tax X amount on each dollar after the fact.
Well, then we also have to ask ourselves another question, though, because it's like for every dollar in, you have to start asking about the dollars out. And we have to ask ourselves 2 questions. Number one, do you want the federal government to be the main employer of the U.S. populace?
Absolutely not.
Why?
I don't think they do the most efficient job, and they don't do it for the right reason.
I don't even think it's for that.
Yeah.
I don't like monopolies.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, there you go.
I don't like monopolies.
Yeah.
I don't want there to only be AWS, Amazon Warehouse Studios for data repositories. I don't want there to only be Teslas for electric cars. I don't want any monopolies.
Would you like the government to go in and do something about that?
In
a la
what respect?
Teddy Roosevelt trust busting kind of thing?
Well, I think that's why I think Teddy Roosevelt is
the GOAT?
Well, I think
One
that's
of
why
the
he's
goats.
on Mount Rushmore.
I
I think
believe
he's on
so as
Mount
well.
Rushmore because he went up to J.P. Morgan and said, "Go fuck yourself."
Yeah.
I think Lincoln's up there for Civil War. I think
That's what I'm
Washington
saying.
and
Like
Jefferson
the
for obvious
Republican Party
reasons.
for the longest time was a more progressive party in those ways.
I trust businessmen that are greedy as fuck to do what's in their best interest, but you as a federal government need to incentivize them that best interest would be to onshore and keep things in America. We've lost a sense of patriotism when it came to capitalism. And that's where we went wrong as individuals. That's where we can't look at the federal government and blame them. When you had certain businessmen get to a certain stage and they said, you know what? We got to make the next quarter bigger than last. We got to push better margins. We got to push more revenue. We got to outsource this shit because we can get
go
it
to
for pennies
China.
on the dollar. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem of the market, I will say. Like, listen, there's nothing that's like universal. Capitalism has its own problems as well. And that's one of them. It's short-sighted thinking.
And it is. It's going to be short-sighted as well because some of these, the reason I was in 2024, I was definitely like, I'm voting for Trump for sure, absolutely. And the USMCA was definitely the biggest reason for that because I thought he was the first person to. I don't even know if he did it for the right reasons or not. I don't know if it was like, I just don't like China. We need to get him. We need to tariff the fuck out of him over and over again. But when Robert Lighthizer, not really Donald Trump. Did the USMCA, it was the first thing that was like, okay, we're going to make it really hard for people to manufacture anything related to cars in China, anything related to anything in China, and this is going to be our first step. And I was like, finally, because China is not going to be the future.
No,
right?
But we don't know if that necessarily will be in America too, because here's the other thing that the thing that we're missing about this industrial capabilities and stuff like that, culture.
Yeah.
We've established this culture in America of like people that don't want to work hard.
That's what I talk about. That's what I mean. Like my optimism with this particular era in America is I like the propaganda aspect of it, the entrepreneurship, businessy kind of work hard, have a nuclear family, have kids. We're gonna do kids. We're gonna be like apple pie and you know, it's like when you go to Shamrock FC and they do the opening and they got the jets and the and all that, like that kind of propaganda. Exactly, that kind of propaganda I think is mandatory right now.
Well,
because the globalism is gonna, even if like globalism was going well right now, in terms of like we were really happy with, you know, everything that was going on with it, like the collapse I'm harping on it over and over again, but the collapse demographically is just literally inevitable. Yeah. It's not going to be a sustainable thing long term.
We were always going to get here on that trend.
And everybody knew. Like if you look at the history books, everybody knew. Like in the 80s, and like they knew in Japan that this was going to happen at this time period. You know, like it's not like it was a mistake.
Well, that was going to be my second question. So my first question was, should the federal government be the main employer of the American populace? No. And number two, is our current path sustainable? Also, no.
No.
You're 2 for 2. No. You have to do something different.
Yeah.
And I'm all for, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If, let's say we weren't doing anything about the size of government, but we were strictly having the conversation about like our deficit, right?
Yeah.
I am willing to have a conversation about the amount that you're going to take from me if you're going to start having the conversation of where this fucking money goes and how much money you're spending. The problem that I have with all these people that say like tax the rich, now that we're seeing with Doge and everything, you have to understand that as something gets exponentially bigger, that the effectiveness or the efficiency of it will also, it'll parabola into the negative, right? So it's like the same thing that would make you think that pumping more money into something will make it better is actually what could actually drive its detrimental facts for like every additional dollar, how much less of value are you getting? I have sticker shock mob whenever I see the line items on some of this spending. Because I have friends that like operate on margins that are so fucking small and they're able to do such amazing work with such less capital. I have friends that with like $5 million have built companies that employ like 100 people, 150 people. And then I see $50 million going to some like theater thing in the Middle East. And you're just thinking to yourself, how much good could have been done with just 50 million? I'm not even talking about the billions or the trillions. $50 million. $50 million investment in let's not even say it's like a commercial use. Infrastructure, which as we know, boosts the economy.
Yeah.
Pump $50 million into a new highway system just here in St. Louis or whatever. We do 55. You know what I mean? It just angers me. And it's like, I don't want to be taxed more. Not because I don't think that I should. I love America. I'm a patriot. And if you were to directly correlate my tax dollars with going towards like things that improve the lives of all Americans, then I would give you more of my money if you could prove to me that you could do it better than me. But you have proven so consistently over such a long period of time that is impossible for you. So forgive me if I don't want to give you more of my money.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. So what about that incoming financial collapse, you know?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we were talking about off the record, but let's talk about it on the record is that's the other rant that I had. So one was like tariffs and how if they are done improperly, then yes, then everything the liberals are saying, everything the Democrats are saying would actually come to fruition, and it'll cause the erosion even more so of the middle class. Simultaneously, the amount of money that we printed because of COVID, our reaction to essentially shutting down the global economy, but then printing money en masse to keep the same demand levels for goods and services, and basically just to prevent people from dying, because you're telling them they can't work, they can't earn a living. You're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
It was so erroneous what we did. Our reaction to COVID was so horrendous. Yeah. And we will feel the repercussions of that for long after it's over. And none so a time as now. I explained it once, I'll explain it again. During COVID and the years afterwards, back when we had like 10% year-over-year inflation, anybody with cash that was holding on to their money was literally an idiot. So what they were all doing was they were just buying assets, houses, rental properties, cryptocurrency, stocks, options trading, commodities, precious metals. If you could buy a thing, you were buying a thing, Rolexes, because inflation.
Jiu-Jitsu mats.
Jiu-Jitsu mats. Whatever.
I invested all my government money back into my business, all of it.
Well, that's because that's a capital expenditure, not an operation expenditure.
Yep.
You're spending money on things that will make you money.
They gave me money back.
Wise man.
For like 2 years.
But that's why you saw like basically Wall Street and all these asset classes rally these last 2 years, even though you had year-over-year inflation that made no fucking sense. Well, now what's happening with deregulation, with a conservative in office, with all of this talk about tariffs and everything, and about bringing manufacturing back to America, you're gonna have to start getting money rolling again. What does everybody need to do now? They need to get back on the dollar. Now you're starting to see everybody kind of liquidate a good portion of their assets. So that's why you're seeing a 10-point swing in cryptocurrency on any given day, depending on what commercial real estate, not commercial real estate, sorry, a commercial bank is basically offloading their position. It's like, dude, you can't have a sustainable market like this because the market sustains itself on consistency. You can't have 5-point swings left, right, and center based on what Trump's saying that one day. Yeah. It's going to create instability and thus a crash. I think that's what's going to happen right now. Mop, I'll tell you this. I liquidated a good portion of my portfolio literally this month. Yeah. In the month of March. And I'm going to pay a sizable amount of tax for capital gains. I am watching everything that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are doing with like bated breath, because whenever they make a move, I'm going to follow. Yeah. And I'm hoping that everything that I sold, I'll be able to buy at a discount once this market crashes.
I think once it bottoms, you'll be fine.
Yeah. But no, I mean, but here's my fear. My fear is that this was always going to happen. This was always going to happen because of our reaction to COVID. And my fear is that the conservatives are going to be left with the bill, and that everyone's going to think that like, oh, Trump somehow, some way had anything to do with this market.
Yeah, no, he didn't have anything.
He does a little bit with tariffs. I'm not going to lie, but like I said, if you couple that with a tax reform, not so much.
Do you think the tariffs on Mexico and Canada are actually going to happen? I'm very.
Expand your question. Like, I think we're going to tariff the shit out of them. Yeah,
I'm just wondering if he's going to pull back or not.
It depends. I think he wants to pull back.
Yeah,
but I think he wants to pull back because there's going to be some sort of a reciprocation of effort. Yeah. So, I think with certain countries and certain industries, his goal is for them to acquiesce so that he doesn't have to pull that trigger. Yeah. And I think for certain countries and certain industries, he hopes they don't acquiesce. Yeah. Because I'll tell you what. This will hurt China.
Yeah, I mean,
because China's propagated everything we just said about our failing middle class is a boom to China's middle class. But if they lose that, because they don't have the intellectual capabilities that we do in this country, not just like technology, but also like Hollywood, the arts, all these. They have to buy all of our sports and all our fighters.
Giant portions of China are still extremely rural and poor.
Exactly.
Like dirt poor.
You can say the same thing about America, but not as poor.
Yeah, not as poor. No.
China right now is at a precipice where they need to hold on to their manufacturing at all costs.
Yes.
And it's just
we're making it really hard.
It's an interesting time. If I were China, I would be trying to do everything that I can to please Trump so that he doesn't do the tariffs on us, so that we can keep being the manufacturer.
But I think he's still going to keep doing it no matter. I mean,
I think Trump will do what's in the best interest of America.
Yeah,
that's why I voted for him.
Which is tariff China like crazy.
I don't say tariff like crazy, but like structural.
Yeah, just little
bit of tariffs ever more, and let everybody know that this is only going to continue to happen until you start making shit here in America.
I mean, that's what I think that the USMCA is up for renegotiation in 2026, and I think this is all actually just a play to get really good renegotiation terms on a deal that we already have, but better, because we have significant amount of leverage on both countries.
I think it's different. I think
could be wrong.
I think right now the Republican Party has, for the first time in a while, the absolute ability to govern, and people desperately want change. That's their mandate: change. The system is broken. We cannot continue on this path. The question, my second answer, is this sustainable? No. So change it. I think right now what they're trying to do more than anything is be bold and do all the shit. They're doing a lot of swamp shit. I'm not gonna lie. They're doing a lot of swamp shit still. I don't think Rome was built in a day, and I think that when you get to DC, I think it's a different fucking animal. But I will say, for me at least, I notice a difference from Trump 1 and Trump 2.
Oh, absolutely.
This guy's a man on a mission now. Everybody in his cabinet might not be the most intelligent.
Well, I mean, I definitely think that not having Robert Lighthizer in there is a definite not good thing. Yeah. And then he's pretty much replaced with Peter Navarro, who I think is a little bit too hawkish, but
I'll tell you what, I think RFK Jr. as a House Secretary was genius.
Yeah, I thought that was. I think it's.
I thought that was like one of the best moves he could make.
Yeah, I mean, it was the best move to get him elected as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
I mean, that election was the best election I've ever seen in my entire life. That whole campaign was incredible.
You talking about? Well, okay.
2024.
I
I was in it.
For Trump making his moves and the Democrats shooting themselves in the foot, man. Not having a primary, forcing Kamala in. Brother, I'm telling you, I think if Gavin stepped up, I don't think we have Trump in office.
Possibly. There is also the argument that incumbent parties across the world, pretty much in every instance.
Yeah, but Donald Trump won.
They were all left wing, and now they're all right wing, or at least further right wing.
Well, then you look at the makeup of those people, then you look at the inauguration of Donald Trump, and the people behind him are basically like the fintech companies, the Mag 7, you know what I mean? I don't think that electing Donald Trump was the change that everybody thinks it is.
Oh, yeah.
I think that electing Donald Trump shows that the change is already happening or has been happening. So, like, when you're starting to see some of these entrepreneurs and some of these CEOs and all these, like, high-income, high-profile people making that shift, like fucking Mark Zuckerberg basically was on Joe Rogan and basically did, like, a fucking lizard move and said, like, no, I'm like one of you guys now. Here's my gold chain and my afro.
Hey, is that because he hangs out with Dana White now?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Listen, all I'm trying to say is I think they thought they were right and they realized they were wrong a while ago.
Yeah.
And they were already making that change. To them, I say whatever, because, like, everyone's going to be fickle and everyone's going to change with the times, especially when it comes to business. But in terms of your mandate as an elected official, I'm getting everything that I voted for. I wanted, truth be told, I wanted chaos.
Yeah.
I wanted the establishment to be, like, shaken.
I
knew that would cause pain. And that's okay.
I mean, I wanted it also because I would like also to see the Democrats completely restructured as well. I was like, if Trump wins, we're going to see a Democrat party.
Do you think they'll completely restructure? I don't
think they'll completely restructure. I do think if they get crushed in the midterms, they're more likely
that's
to
so
restructure.
Listen, we're only 2 months into this administration.
Yes, exactly. But I'm just saying, just in general, like, would I see them go far more populist if they lose the midterms? Yeah, I would see them go even more populist.
Which I think is actually the trajectory that everybody wants. I mean, the Republican Party is going more populist right now. Yeah. That's the only reason Donald Trump got elected.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Speaking to the middle America, speaking to the unheard.
That's why our senator here is so popular. You know? I mean, what do you think about the 10% cap on credit cards that Josh Hawley's pushing right now?
I think that's genius.
Yeah, with Bernie Sanders.
I would go so much further because I also think that there's like a lot of predatory practices across a lot of industries. And I think that the over-financialization of everyday life is going to create a serf class. When the Civil War ended and the Emancipation Proclamation was heard and, the 16th Amendment was ratified, there were a lot of pieces of legislation that were kind of created to still keep black people as like second tier citizens. So like, you got your freedom, but now you had sharecropping and now you had, a lot of Jim Crow laws that were designed to still keep you under the boot of the white man. So like, did you have your freedom? It was a case of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but still net gains. I think right now more than ever, we are starting to see that like the youth are coming out in droves. I've never seen young people so politically active. Yeah. When I was like 18, 19, I didn't know about any of this shit. Like I talked to some of the high schoolers when I coach, just the amount of shit that they know about geopolitics, about the markets, about this politician, that politician, this country, that country. I'm like, dude, you kids are like so learned. I have faith in them. Like kind of like what you were saying earlier about these young guys that are coming into the gym. I have faith in this next generation because they are in a lot of ways more connected to the information that is actually pertinent and matters to them. Yeah. So they are going to be harder to lie to.
They have better tools as well. Yeah, they have
they have better tools. Well, I mean, dude, when we were coming up, we had mainstream media.
Yeah.
We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have
YouTube
basic
channels. We had basic.
We had Joe Rogan.
We were Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I mean, you have basic access to the internet, and if you were a nerd and you're politically active, like I was when I was like 18, it was like you're just looking stuff up all the time. But now I can just.
But you had like the dark Reddit channels. Where you were labeled a conspiracy theorist. Like remember like the people that like were against the Iraq War and Iran War, not Iran War, sorry, the Iraq War and the invasion of Afghanistan. It's like if you thought that this was wrong and unjust, and we were there to kill terrorists and weapons of mass destruction, like you were thought of like shut up, shill, shut up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then
golden
10
age
years
of
later,
being
we
a
realized that
Democrat.
everyone that ever criticized them was absolutely correct.
Yes, absolutely correct, completely correct.
It's just, it astounds me. This is one thing that I does shock me. The amount of transparency that has now been shed on the lies that have happened for the better part of the last 30 years, and there are still people that will trust this government. Mind you, that includes this administration.
Oh, yeah.
That includes this administration.
Oh, I don't trust them at all.
Until I get the Epstein files, until I get the JFK files and the Martin Luther King files, and until I get some transparency on some shit from 80 years ago. I know that sounds stupid, but it's like, that's the precursor. That's the tip of the iceberg. Then I want open source accounting on everything that the government spends money on. That's what I really fucking want. Why do we need Doge to come in and see where money is being spent? Why is this under the hood?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, though, a lot of it's not under the hood.
What do you mean?
Like if you put in a FOIA request, you could probably get most.
Yeah,
of the
but how many people are going to do that?
Exactly, that's what I mean, though. It's
but it
like
gets lost in the sauce and the bureaucracy. So, like, you put in a FOIA request, you might not get heard for like another year.
Yeah.
About one topic, because you can't do blanket. You can't say I want to do a FOIA request on everything the Department of Education has done. You have to do it like on
transparency of bills. So they just hide them in there and then whoosh.
I think that there's an efficiency to CRs. Like, I get that, like, you want to bundle all of this shit to push it, but that's part and parcel.
But sometimes they won't even make it near as public as they need to when they're trying to pass them. Yeah, and you don't even know until after it's passed where all this stuff's going.
I'll tell you one tool that's gonna completely revolutionize and change the way that lawmakers do these continued resolutions, the spending packages, and all that. And that's gonna be ChatGPT and AI. Because you're going to have these thousands and thousands of pages of like where money's being spent or whatever, and no human will have the time to adequately read over them and consolidate all the information in time. But now with AI, with ChatGPT and all that, you could put the entire tax document in there and it'll spew it out in 30 minutes. And here's all the bullet points. Here's where this money's going to. Here's where this money's going to. Here's where this money's going to.
I mean, AI, AI is incredible. Like, sidetrack, like I do all of my marketing
through AI?
Using it. I mean, it's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Like, I can take...
What marketing, when you say marketing, like what, Instagram posts? Like,
social, Facebook. Social media? Like, I'm...
What, videos?
All of it. Like,
so you record and then throw it in AI?
It's not even that. You know, I'll post it organically, right? And then I'll give it the stats, and I'll be like, is this a good... organic? I can just put it in a grok, like all the analytics, and I'm like, hey, is this something I should put money to? And then it'll be like, this could be a really good thing to put money to. And then I will run an ad campaign. I will just literally screenshot all of the analytics, put it back. And Grok, it's free. It's free on Twitter. I put it in there, and I'm like, how much money should I put in? And it'll go through all the analytics, what all my competitors, they think my competitors are doing, what the market's doing in my area, where to tell me where and what demographics I should isolate my ad campaign towards. And then I just do it. And then I've never.
Have you seen a correlation?
I've never seen more. Like I'm compounding like I've never had before.
How long ago did you start incorporating this?
Just a few months ago.
And already
December,
you're like, holy
December,
shit.
January, I was like, well, because like I had noticed in 20, we had, you had several little market bumps, like what, in 2023, where like, I saw a direct correlation between, like the minor stock market crashes where everybody thought it was going to be a recession. Well,
we were in a recession, though.
Yeah, like
on paper,
yes.
We had 2 quarters back to back.
So I got kind of like business kind of like this for a little while, right? And
did it scare you?
It did. It absolutely did scare me because I saw for the first time since COVID, I saw a digression,
regression.
A regression in my numbers, and I hadn't seen that ever. Like
you only ever experienced growth.
Yeah, for the like obviously during COVID, like I saw like a plummet, and then just growth after that because the government gave everybody money and everybody's like, oh, let's spend our money on jiu-jitsu, and like I saw a giant bump during COVID. I was like that. I was like, hey, I was experiencing what you were talking about. I was like, they gave all these people just tons of money, and they're like, giving me the money. Yeah, I was like, it really does go back to the top, doesn't it? Just filters back up.
100%.
And and all my money went to Amazon. Not really.
If you're spending your money on anything that does not make you money, then you are by definition a consumer.
Yeah. So I saw that and I was like, oh man, this is bad. And then, I saw like little bumps and peaks and valleys and stuff like that. But when I started using AI for my marketing, I just started seeing this.
Yeah.
It just gets to the people that want to see it. Yeah. And it's incredible. And it will tell me, like, Grok isn't quite, maybe if you get the premium version, but I just use the free version. Doesn't like watch the video for me, but there's some that will. There's some that'll like literally watch the video for you and tell you where.
Brother, I was about to say this. So I use I'm not going to tell you the AI language learning model that I use for my software development because I'm holding that one too close to the chest. However, I'm going to start incorporating Opus Clip into this podcast because I'll tell you what they have, specifically what you're talking about. I can put in, and this is like, I don't know. This tells you the truth or the true potential of AI. I can put in a 3-hour unedited podcast, and I'm probably going to start with this one. And I'll put it in there, and I'll say, hey, create clips out of this in 30-second increments. I don't want the clip to be longer than 30 seconds. It'll do the cuts. It'll put in background music. It'll do the closed captioning. And then it will grade the clips that it'll make. It'll make like 100 clips.
Yep. I know exactly what program you're talking about.
Yeah, Opus Clip. And then it'll give you like a number of what it thinks will go viral. Yep. Like this is 99, this is 98, this is 97, based on this, that, or the other. Now, here's the thing. The gentleman, Gabriel, don't worry. I love you. I love your work. I think you do a great job. I'm not outsourcing you. I'm going to use this in conjunction with, not in place of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like Gabriel's going to do the clips that I specifically want because that's going to be the stuff that we post on Instagram, and then we collaborate with the person because I want the clips to be very positive of the guests. Maybe something you say today that I really resonate with, or maybe like some funny thing that happened, something that is like lighthearted or jovial, or you would want on your wall as well, right? However, that's for the guest. This one will be strictly for like YouTube, like things that I think will go viral and will then generate traction or just viewers kind of funneling towards the channel for growth. So I think you can have both. Because I don't pay anybody to be on the podcast. So I want them to have some sort of value from this, whether it's a great conversation,
it's extreme value.
Whether it's networking, whatever it is. And then as the platform grows, then the value will become the platform. But right now I'm small. So how can I generate as much value for the guests as possible? Because I don't want to pay somebody to talk to me. I refuse to do that.
That's ridiculous.
Then how can I generate the most amount of value for myself? Well, I can't have Gabriel doing like fucking 20 clips every episode. That's going to break the bank for me.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I got Gabriel for you, and I got Opus Clip for me.
Yeah.
But maybe I eat shit. Who knows? We'll see.
But yeah. No. I've actually looked into that because obviously I'm trying to do something myself. But it's fascinating as well. Yeah. It is. And AI just in general is fascinating. I think there's a lot of fear surrounding it, but like, man, it is just a tool. It's an awesome tool. And those who use it will thrive. Yeah, there we go. Those who use it will thrive, and those who don't use it will, I think, be left behind.
Yeah, I think it's the same way that I look at my computer is like, if I had to do everything by paper, you would probably need 5 of me, right? But because I have a computer, you only need 1 of me, and then the amount that I can do is just exponentially greater. That's how I look at AI. But the difference is AI gives productive capabilities that are so strong to individuals that like you're going to start seeing very small companies produce amazing products and amazing digital assets and amazing everything because the amount that they'll be able to do will be exponentially higher from before with a fraction of the cost. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see like video game producers or development companies where like 100% of the game was developed by AI based on prompts and all this other stuff, iterations. I wouldn't be surprised if like there will be whole genres of music created from AI and no actual person was ever playing an instrument or ever singing or anything.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Like how long are we until like the next superstar who's 100% AI?
Yeah.
How long are we until a video game that captures the masses that didn't have one physical developer there?
Yeah.
I think that's the future. Now, there's 2 ways you can look at that. One way is, what about all the jobs, Ariane? Like all these people that are going to be out of jobs. That is a way to look at it. The other way to look at it is like all these opportunities that any of these individuals can have for themselves now. Mm-hmm. I think what AI will do is truly explode entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because it'll never be easier.
I mean, technology usually results in more jobs in other places.
Yes.
Rather than less jobs overall.
Well,
if you look at the self-checkout machine, the self-checkout machine didn't contribute to a net loss of jobs until the internet took over retail. It actually allowed retailers to expand jobs into other areas that weren't sitting people to doing the mundane beep, beep, beep. That's statistics I looked up on AI, by the way. AI told me that.
I think what you're seeing right now in real time is a change of people, or a shift of people going from product focused to service focused, because they're realizing that human beings have an inherent value to other human beings. So you're seeing a lot of jobs opening up in hospitality, a lot of jobs opening up in the service sector, where like human beings, the interaction with another human being is the value.
Oh yeah.
And I think everything else, it's like we have to sit back and ask ourselves a question. Like we're talking about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. Yeah. How long until you have like an AI with like an Elon Musk? I forget the name of the robot company. I think it's Tesla. I think it's Tesla. Tesla Robotics.
Yeah,
Tesla Robotics.
It is Tesla.
How long until you just have like a whole fucking gigafactory of Tesla Robotics robots sitting on a conveyor belt, just doing 1-1-1-1, powered by AI, and that none of us have to do any sort of manufacturing whatsoever?
I think that might be a little in the future, though, like quite a bit.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I just
don't know if it'll be cheaper.
Oh, okay. The initial investment will
Yeah.
always be upfront more expensive.
Yeah.
But then you look at the time horizon. It's like, when do we recoup our like when do we hit equilibrium to where like the initial cost is then subverted by what the cost
I
of
think
a
you'd
human
have to
being
get
would
to a
be.
point where
5 or 6 years.
Yeah, well, I think you'd have to get to a point where like the robots are like fixing themselves rather than having
You'll
people
always
have
have
to,
forgive
yeah.
me. There will always be a human element, but
Yeah.
it goes back to my thing of saying, like, if I was doing it on paper, you would need 5 of me. Because
Yeah.
of a computer, you only need
Oh,
1 of me.
absolutely, yeah.
You don't need 200 people on the factory floor. You need 2 engineers.
Yeah.
That can work on the robots when they malfunction. And then the other thing is that they can work 24 hours, 7 days a week, no time stop,
Yeah.
and all these other things.
No, that will be in the future. Yeah.
But then it goes back to like, and I've thought a lot about this.
China's already starting to try to do that.
Well,
they're trying to fix their demographic problem by doing that.
Well, I think that's the one thing that will solve the declining birth rates is the fact that you won't need as much.
Well, I mean, that's what
labor.
Japan has already, like, Japan
Yeah,
knew
but
about this and started self-automating a long time ago.
Yeah, but like, dude, they're like what 0.6
Yeah, it's
now?
too bad.
Can you Google Japan's birth rate 2025?
And I think China
it's
will
like
get
sub
that bad.
1.
Well, it's not as bad as
1.
South Korea, but it's bad.
That means for every person that's dying,
South
half
Korea
a
is sub
person
1.
is being born.
South Korea is sub 1 already. They're the worst. They're the worst in the world.
Maybe it was South Korea. Maybe
They're the
not.
worst in the world.
That's crazy.
And
that
then
North
Russia's high
Korea,
on that list as well.
The People's Republic of North Korea has a better birth rate than South Korea.
Maybe. We don't really know.
Yeah, I know, right?
Who knows?
Sorry.
Who knows?
Tony's like, man.
But poor people have kids because they don't have birth control. So,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I talk about places you wouldn't want to live. But no, going back to the thing is like the whole nature of. So like for me, work gives me a lot of purpose.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like my job, the thing that I do to make money is actually the thing that I spent the most time on this planet doing.
Yeah.
So like if you told me like, hey, Arion, we're going to automate everything that you do. You're going to keep all your money. Like all the revenue is still going to be there, but you're not going to have to work 60-hour weeks. Have fun.
Yeah.
I literally don't know what I would fill that time with. You know what I mean? Like imagine you don't need to be there to do jujitsu. They have a mop robot where they've like, taken all your cognitive abilities, put it in this robot, and this robot teaches way better than you because it doesn't need to eat, doesn't get tired, doesn't get sore.
Below 700,000, but it's not showing the percent.
Okay. Below 700,000 a year? Well, what's its population? Population of Japan. I can do this in real time right now.
You could just ask Grok for a percentage.
Yeah.
What's the total pop?
123 million.
123,700,000 births per year. So 123 million.
That's our whole population.
123 million is the whole total population.
Yeah.
So then you have to half that because 50% women, 50% men. So roughly what? 61.5 million women. And then of those, what are the childbearing women? Let's say conservative, it's like 40 million, 700,000. You're talking about, yeah, dude, sub 1%. Like you're talking about like 0.8, 0.7.
I think they're the second worst.
That's crazy.
But Russia's almost sub 1 as well. They're like 1.
Are they?
They're like I think they're like 1.7. Wait, 1 point.
Well, dude,
we're
talk
1
about-
point.
you wanna
We're
talk about
1.7.
You want to talk about a country that's going to have
They're like,
population
yeah.
collapse? Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine is as well. Yeah.
Ukraine.
What
I
is
don't
it?
know what's going to
We're
happen
one-
after
yeah,
this war.
we're
But
1.7.
the face of that
think they're
country,
1.4.
I feel so bad for the Ukrainian people.
Yeah.
There was never an instance where this was going to be beneficial to them, but they chose to fight instead of recede, and I give them some merit for that. But fuck,
They had
man.
a 5% drop.
Who?
Japan did.
had a 5% drop in what? Birth rate?
Like Ukraine already had a bad birth rate before this.
Well, now I mean, there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't conscribe the women, and you didn't. I mean, I've seen some horror videos of like them pulling kids off the street though. So I don't. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about propaganda. I don't know what I believe from Ukraine, to be completely honest with you. They say they weren't.
I don't know what I believe from anyone.
Yeah.
In that sphere,
including us
of the world. Yeah, including us. Including us.
Do you think it's possible to like run a country on transparency?
You know, well, hey, after the nearest signal leak, the Trump administration's doing it.
How fucking stupid are they? How fucking stupid?
I don't know. Part of me thinks Mike Wallace did it on purpose.
Was on that text string.
Yeah.
JD Vance was on there. So like, the vice president, like no one noticed this random reporter in the group chat.
Well,
are you fucking kidding me? I got group chats with like 5 friends where all we do is post like horrid memes. That I watch like with an eagle eye.
The idea is the thing is I guess he had like a GJ or whatever. His initials were the same as the person that they thought it was, and they thought it was him. Part of me, the conspiratorial part of me, which isn't a huge part of me, thinks that Mike Wallace did it on purpose to make JD Vance look bad. All right, that's part of what I think.
To what end?
Because JD Vance was in there saying not to bomb the Houthis, not like what does this do for us? He was disagreeing with Trump openly on the Signal chat.
I tell you how excited I am.
But that told me like JD Vance is what he says he is. That's great.
Can I tell you how excited I am for post-Trump?
Yeah.
Because if JD Vance decides to run, he has my fucking vote.
Yeah, because he's
him or Josh Hawley. Both of those guys are so exceptionally intelligent.
What about a
Chinese
ticket,
finger trap?
A ticket together, a ticket. Well, dude, Josh Hawley, JD Vance ticket.
If they were smart, they would do something like that. Yeah. Dude, you want to talk about like conservative run, like a conservative run? 4 years of Trump. If they don't fucking botch it, though, that's the problem. Yeah.
Or if it's even possible, because I think there's a certain amount of determinism in politics that make it really hard.
My problem is, like what you said, everything's economics. If the recession
is your mic on?
No.
Turn it on. If you're going to talk, turn on your mic.
Yeah.
All right, talk now.
My problem is, I
Don't
think
be so
everything.
Close.
My problem is, I think like everything you say is true. It's economics, but if we have a recession like you predict we have, it just. Trump's
the recession will happen by virtue of our fiscal irresponsibility from before, and regardless of who would have been president.
And I think Trump's going to fit the bill.
My fear is that the intelligence of the American populace will be so shockingly susceptible to propaganda that the Democrats will be able to say, see, we told you they don't know what they're doing, and that they're going to get the bill.
If they can get it together.
But here's the thing, is like there's also...
You need to get it together. If you follow like NBC on Instagram, like the stock market goes down 2%, so like Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, but how much damage have the Democrats already done to their propaganda base to where people actually believe them?
Absolutely true. I don't know a single person my age that watches the news. Even myself, I used to watch MSNBC like a little bit for the market and everything like that. Not even that anymore.
And will they give way? And will they give way on social issues? Because I think that, I don't
think they can.
But like if they don't, like that is like, everything's generally the economy. But you can push social issues as far as.
Can you grab me the red breast?
Yes.
Yeah, the red breast.
You're good. We're still recording. Keep talking.
Yeah, if you don't give up at least some of the social issues.
The green bottle? No. Yes. Yeah, no, yeah, baby. There we go. We're cooking bacon grease now.
That's the good stuff.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's just they can hound on the social issues.
You're good. I'll put it on the table
as hard as they possibly can, and I just think that like the nuclear family kind of propaganda is so strong right now that it's going to be really hard to overcome it. I think people are really starting to fall into that mindset. You see a reinvigoration of religious people in this country all of a sudden.
Well, because
especially
it gives purpose. Capitalism won't give purpose.
Yeah, no.
It's not in the dollar we trust. It doesn't have to be in God. But when you strip the love out of fucking life, like you don't have a family, you don't have close friends, everything else, like what else do you fucking have, dude?
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know about you, Mop. It is something that is happening to me irregardless of politics. Mm-hmm. Like I had a daughter. It brought me closer to God. When I proposed to my woman, it brought me a little closer to God. Like everything that I'm doing makes me think less and less of myself, more and more about them, more and more about like life after me, more and more about, you know, like, it is not a virtue of my political leanings that made me more conservative. Like, I'm truly an independent. I was going to vote RFK Jr. until he dropped out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm going to vote for a Democrat in 2028.
Yeah.
Now, if J.D. Vance runs on the Republican ticket, chances are he's going to have my vote. But let's see, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is this would have happened no matter what. Just by virtue of getting married, just by virtue of having kids, just by virtue of like being a man,
which is why
having to lead a household.
Democrats don't want you to get married because it's.
Do you think they don't want you to get married?
Well, I mean, your likelihood of voting conservative when you get married, it goes up significantly for women, especially.
Did you see the demographic chart? It said it was basically like red or blue on the U.S. Map, and it was like the election if married white men voted, in all 50 states.
Yeah, of course.
All 50 states.
Yeah, and that's primarily because of social issues.
Yeah,
I mean, like you.
Do you think women are just easier to be propagandized because they're more emotional creatures?
I think that's an aspect. I think they're more prone to negative emotion. Yeah.
Boy, you said yes way too fast, way too hard.
Yeah. Well, I think, but like you have to break that down into a sub factor as well. It's married women aren't. They vote like do one where it's married women, and see if the outcome is similar.
Do you think if the draft was also carried out for women, that the manner in which they vote would change?
Potentially, yeah, probably. I don't think we'd ever do that.
You know, for us saying like things like, oh, we got to support Ukraine, oh, we got to do this, that. Okay, well, if shit goes south, you could be called on. Do you think that would change?
Well, I think the left leaning answer to that would be there will be no draft. We shouldn't have a draft anyway.
That's not the left leaning answer anymore, though. They're trying to fight the war in Ukraine.
No, what I mean is like, yeah, we'll fight the war in Ukraine, but they're still they're going to think fundamentally that the draft shouldn't exist, irregardless of whether men or women are drafted. That's the argument that I've heard mostly from that side of the aisle, especially from women, is like, well, we should just do away with the draft altogether.
We have
that's the sidestep answer.
But we have record low enlistment into our military.
That's true. I agree. I mean, I agree with you, but I mean, I don't think women should be drafted.
Feel like sometimes we have detached ourselves from the decisions that we make politically, fiscally, and all this stuff from reality?
Yeah, absolutely. Pax Americana is going on right now, and we have.
That. Elaborate a little bit.
The Pax Romana was 75 years of more or less peace in the Roman Empire, where if you lived in the central part of the Roman Empire, you did not experience any sort of fear or war at all whatsoever, and that's exactly what's going on
in human history to that point.
Yeah, and we're going through that right now, and I think that it gives us a very distorted view of reality. I think that globalism has kept war at bay. Even though we can see like the war in Iraq, and those are just such minor conflicts comparatively.
Nuclear weapons also play a factor.
Yeah, no, nuclear weapons absolutely play a factor in that. But it's a combination of those things.
Agreed.
Obviously, when Nixon opened up China, all of a sudden it was like, oh, we have about half as much worry as we did before because now this other nuclear power is on our side. And then when the Soviet Union fell, I mean, all of a sudden now we're like, okay, great.
That is such a great point to bring up, Mop, because it's like a lot of times when we look back at history, we say like, we did this wrong, but sometimes we do a poor service to history by detaching ourselves from the issues of the time. And at the time, the threat of communism was so vast and so powerful that I do think a lot of the decisions that were made were like, hey, this is going to have ripple effects, but we will deal with that tomorrow because today we have this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. The war in Vietnam is absolutely that, exactly in a nutshell, and Korea. The stop of the wars to stop communism were super important because we needed to keep it at bay. I
would make the argument that both of those wars actually caused like a disservice to the American
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely backfired.
If anything, we learned the lesson that like, hey, we can't just send money and guns.
But do you think that we'd really want to open up China and start outsourcing? I mean, we're talking about a time when inequality in our country was at an all-time low, which is in the 50s and 60s, and then we get into the Nixon administration. I'm a big fan of the Nixon administration outside of Watergate, but like it.
But the unsexy reality is, Jesus Christ.
Here we go.
Here's the unsexy reality of that, though. Because of all of our fiscal irresponsibility, because of the path that we have chosen, because of the steps that we have taken, we've also not had mutually assured destruction. Yeah. And yes, globalization, like it is like the threat of nuclear war that kind of keeps us all at bay, but also globalization, the intertwining of our markets and the prosperous nature of all of our nations, it is 100% tied to one another.
Yeah.
So it's like in a lot of ways, you could make the argument that our fiscal pain is a direct result of our ability to not blow each other up.
Yeah.
And is that
absolutely?
Price? But here's the thing: is that the price that we pay? Like, do we have to continue fiscal insanity until we implode on ourselves versus explosion of one another?
I mean, that works when there's one kind of power that's significantly stronger than all the other ones with no competitor.
I don't think global hegemony was ever possible the second that the Russians had the A-bomb.
Yeah.
The second they got
it is economically. We created an economic power over a military one over the past what?
Yes and no, because what does the military need?
Obviously
oil and
and
rations, food.
Yeah,
you have to feed
oil and food.
Feed and you have to run it. Yeah, what does Russia have?
They have oil and food. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But they also have horrible demographics.
I know.
And I'm always going to harp back on that because it's like
country is inhabitable.
Yeah, and it's like they have terrible geography. Like they literally have an open steppe right into their country, which is where most of their fear comes from.
Yeah, but a ground invasion is not. Think about it. You can't invade for 4 months out of the year.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, logically, and the reason I say that is because like the Russian winters are extremely harsh. The springs with what happens to snow when it melts? Everything else gets wet.
You could
literally the Ukraine and Russia war, they're neighbors, right? There was like a 3-month period where they just basically were like at a standstill because you could not like track artillery or tanks or anything of weight, anything of substance would literally sink into the mud. So like you had to basically like an armistice for like 4 months out of the fucking year because of winter and spring. So it's like, yes, you're correct.
Do you think that part of the reason why they're so gung-ho on, the Ukraine specifically is because they want to limit the ability for us to just take a nuclear aircraft carrier right up to the Ukrainian border?
I don't think it's actually nukes anymore.
No, I mean a nuclear aircraft carrier as in like just an aircraft carrier that doesn't run on fossil fuel and can exist there forever and basically teleports there.
I think... And here's the thing, dude. This is
just unleashes a drone army.
This is where we start to get to speculation and like way over our pay grade. I think that when you look at the macro starts to make sense. And what does the person who's afraid of getting beat up do? Starts puffing his chest.
They start puffing their chest.
He wants to look big and bad because he doesn't want to be imposed. And I think it's going to take a special leader to be like, listen.
A crazy one.
We are both spending so much fucking money on all the shit that is not going to propagate and transcend humanity to the next level. That if I agree and you agree and everybody else agrees, and here's the thing, it's like a utopian society, but like, how long can we continue? How long can the masses continue to live like this over degradation after degradation after degradation? I mean, think about it. Our children are the first generation, actually, in a lot of ways, millennials are the first generation of Americans that will have a life lesser than their parents in the last 70 years. So it's like, this will have an effect on the masses. And if there's anything we learned about the Roman Empire, it is the masses that will implode. Like, I am much more afraid of America imploding on itself than I am of Russia or China. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not afraid of Russia or China at all.
Fiscal irresponsibility scares me the most.
Yeah.
Because that is what's going to cause our implosion. America will be what defeats America. Not anybody else. No one else can. For a multitude of the reasons why we talked about today.
Fiscal responsibility, demographic decline, these are the things that are the most, the biggest issue.
Where do you find like yourself, like micro-wise? Like, I want to be careful how I ask this because I know there's some things that are going on in your life right now, but like, aside from some of your personal, like, do you want, like, let's say you had a woman who like you loved and had a wife, like, would you want to have kids?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, do you feel like the world is sustainable for the next generation?
Yes, tons of them.
So you feel optimism in the trajectory of
not
humanity.
Only optimistic, I feel obligated.
Explain.
I think that, if you're one day going to sit there and accept Social Security one day I think you have a little bit of an obligation to
help into that system.
What
if I told you that I don't think there'll be like, I don't think we're gonna have Social Security.
Yeah, we may not. Brother. We may not. Yeah, but I mean, I think that's part of the reason why baby boomers are so big. Gen X is gonna be collecting at the same time, and it's gonna be on millennials' back because Gen Z is not big enough.
We will have a Social Security, but not the way we know it.
Yeah.
Like I think what we're realizing about this is like this is unsustainable, and that there should be a method to the madness. I had an episode where I was talking about how the fiscal responsibility of what we do with the Social Security, because right now what we do with the cash that we have with Social Security is we basically buy our own treasury bonds. But the amount of treasury bonds that we've been buying America from the pool of Social Security has been actually like lesser and lesser and lesser. And I think something to like the tune of like 10% of all treasury bonds owned right now are the American people through the act of the Social Security Fund. The majority of that now is external. If we would have spent that money in like just the S&P 500 alone, we would have seen a return on investment umpteen times higher than how we spent the money before. And I think that at the time, Social Security was what we needed when we needed it. But now we need to start seeing like, this is unsustainable. Once again, it goes back to my question. Is this sustainable? Everybody understands that by 2030, Social Security will be bankrupt. So what are we doing?
Or they're going to have to tax the fuck out of everybody to an insane amount.
Not going to win. That's not going to win.
I agree. It's not going to win.
Because why? Every person is going to think that, like, oh yeah, tax the rich and all that. But who's paying for all these politicians? Who's lobbying for all of them? All the millionaires and billionaires. If you think for a second that you're ever going to get to the point where the corporate income tax rate is going to get to like, or the income tax rate in general is going to get to like 50, 60, 70% again, you're a fool.
Or a marginal rate of 92.
I'll tell you right now, Mom, I'll tell you right now, I have lobbyists.
Yeah.
I'll fucking pay for that shit to not pass.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Of course.
I got people that I got to fucking pay.
Yeah.
That have jobs.
Likewise.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
My responsibility is my family and my employees. That's my responsibility. So, no. You've proven to me that you are fiscally irresponsible, and I am much more responsible with my money than you are. So I will keep my money.
Well, I mean, I agree with that completely. Like, I'm not a big fan of high taxes or the federal government at all.
And it goes deeper than that. It's like it's a psychology of like what leads a man to believe that this entity of other people that are flawed and full of sin and all this other stuff can somehow decide better for you than you.
I don't know.
Do you not have autonomy? Do you not have freedom? Even the freedom to like self-sacrifice or self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Who are you to just take that away from me?
Exactly. Well, self-sabotage is often
it's freedom.
When you're an entrepreneur, you realize that, you know, the growth comes with a lot of failure. And
when you
I don't want that.
Or are.
When you are.
Yeah.
You don't want the government stopping that failure. You don't want your parents stopping that failure. You don't want anyone stopping that failure. You want the failure to happen because you're not going to do anything different without it. I think it's actually the biggest factor of being an entrepreneur, and the government's never allowed to fail. You know, the government can't just...
Well, they can't if they're a monopoly.
Exactly. They're just going to bail themselves out every single time.
We bailed out banks because we thought that if they imploded back in 2008 or if they went under, that it would lead to a depression, the likes of which we have never seen. So we bailed them out. But we never held them accountable. That same mentality is what's happened to our federal government.
Yeah.
There seems to be constant, like, obfuscation of responsibility, diffusion of who's in charge, right? Like, we say all the time that we have run a $40 trillion deficit, and in a lot of ways we have a geriatric Congress. So a lot of the congressmen that are like bitching and complaining about our deficit are the congressmen that for the last 10, 15, 20 years have been voting for this. Yet we don't hold them accountable.
No.
Like, it kind of drives me crazy. If any other person in corporate America were to do 1/100th of the negligent acts that a lot of our congressmen have, they'd be fired. They'd be sued. Malpractice if you're a doctor. A diffusion of fiscal responsibility for your constituents if you're a financial planner. Like, there's repercussions for doing your job badly in almost every other field, unless you're a politician.
Yeah.
Unless you're a politician.
Especially in a non-swing district.
Yeah,
the swing districts, maybe you'll have people that are held to a little bit higher of account because their jobs are on the line. But if you're in like a deep blue area and you could just keep running over and over again unopposed, basically pretty much what Kamala Harris did.
Yeah.
You know, just kept running
Isn't that
unopposed.
so crazy that she wants to run for governor of California?
Yeah. Insane. She might
She'll
win.
probably win.
Yeah, she might win.
I think that's the most like crazy part.
Yeah. She might win, which is
shit.
insane. But who would want to live in California nowadays anyway, you know? I would never want to. That was the one thing I was happy about when COVID did happen is that I lived in a red state. I was like, oh, man, they never closed my business down. You know, I closed it down for like a few weeks.
You were in St. Charles.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
were across the river.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
St.
but that's
Louis,
what I mean. In a
Blue Run, St. Louis.
In a red area. What do you think about the Metropolitan Police being taken over by the state?
I think that's
most fantastic thing ever.
I don't want to say the most fantastic thing ever. I want to say that the city has proven itself. I'm talking about the city of St. Louis. The city of St. Louis has proven itself unable to properly police itself to a standard that is adequate for the taxable income that we are giving for that. I pay 1% city tax.
Yeah.
And that might not seem like a lot, but when I hit every fucking pothole on my way to home from work every day, when I feel like I have to have a gun on me whenever we go to Wash Ave, whenever we do anything at night, when I feel like if someone tells me that they're like, Chad Mueller used to have his stand-up fight series at the Casa Loma Ballroom downtown, I would not go to that. Yeah. I would not go to the Casa Loma Ballroom downtown, not in my Mercedes.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving that park downtown
it's
by the
terrible.
Casa Loma Ballroom unattended.
Yep.
You're out of your mind. Because I know that when I get back to my car, something's going to be different.
You know, when I worked down there, it felt like things were getting better for a while. Like when I worked down there from
Ballpark Village, right?
Yeah, 2018, 2019, all the way into 2020, I felt like it was getting better. And then COVID happened, and then I'm like, wow, this got significantly worse. And like all the development stuff they were going to do down there,
a lot of investment that just halted.
Yeah, from the Stanley Cup, the tons of investment just halted and then went backwards, and then all of a sudden social issues took a front seat to everything. That's what I'm saying. The Democrats' weakest issues are all these
here's
the
the
social
thing.
issues.
I think that I think you can have both. Like, dude, I didn't vote for Trump because the Democrats wanted transgender surgeries and this, that, or the other.
Yeah, of course.
I voted for Trump because it made fiscal responsible sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for me, I'm only speaking for myself. Like, you can have all that other shit that I don't really care about, to be honest with you. I'm not going to have a transgender surgery.
Yeah.
I'm not gay. These things don't affect me.
I don't think the government should be involved in social issues.
I'm going to take my kid to private school anyway, so what do I care what the public school district does, right? So, like, honestly, I hate to say it this way, none of this shit affects me. Yeah. What does affect me is the fiscal responsibility. And they're not fiscally responsible.
No.
That's why I voted for Trump, 100%.
Well,
I voted for Trump, and then I also voted for the abortion bill.
Yeah.
For the same reasons. I want freedom. I want the government out of my fucking life. So I voted for Trump to get out of my fucking life, and I voted for the abortion bill because COVID taught me that I want bodily autonomy much more than I thought I did. Because if you tell me to go get a jab, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself if I don't want to get that jab. No person on this planet, Mop, is going to make me do something I don't want to do. You're going to have to put me in the ground. You're going to have to put me in the ground.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people did do that.
They did. Dude, but there's a lot of people that didn't. Chris Craig, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm going to tell this story. Chris Craig worked for a company, and he was trying to hold out. Because remember, when they were making the jab, they tried to make, it was, I'll never forget this, in the spring of 2021, when Biden was giving a State of the Union address, he also addressed that any company with more than, I believe it was 50,000 employees or 5,000 employees, one of the two, forgive me, had to mandate the jab. And Chris worked for a company that was of that ilk, and he was trying to push it for religious exemption, all this other stuff, push it. Finally, he had to get it or face termination. So he got it. Literally 2 weeks later, the Supreme Court ruled that act was like unconstitutional and that it got revoked. I didn't get the jab because my employer was like, fuck it. Let him come.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. But Chris now has like side effects. Like Chris wants to, have another pro fight.
Yeah.
Dude, the dude can't do more than 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And it's direct correlation to that jab. Now, is it anecdotal? Yes, individual instance, but it's a sense of a broader thing. My whole problem with the political atmosphere is hypocrisy, and it's hypocrisy on both ends. You can't be the party of women have the right to choose, and then also tell me that you're going to mandate a jab. And conservatives can't be the party of like free speech and then also ostracize and, you know, deport college students that want to say free Palestine. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You can't have it both ways. Are you the party of free speech? Are you the party of autonomy? What are you guys? Because you want your cake and you want to eat it too. And it's hypocrisy on both ends that just drive me fucking crazy. I always thought that my politics was very fucking simple. It was like live and let live. But then it changed once I realized there were people that weren't wanting to let me live. Mm-hmm. Now it's like live and let live by actions. You can't say that I'm hypocritical. You might say that my politics are wrong, but you can't say that I don't practice what I preach. You want to say whatever you want to say? You want to butt fuck your husband? You want to have an abortion? Fine. Don't take my fucking money to pay for it. Pretty simple. But what do I know, dude? I'm just a foreign man from a foreign land.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think there's ever going to be a case where like this schism between the parties actually starts to recede a little bit?
Possibly not in our lifetime, but I don't know.
Because we talk about how like we're so polarized as a nation, but like that kind of happened within my lifetime. That happened in the last decade.
I mean, I think it happens all the time, honestly.
Explain.
I think that throughout history you can see varying degrees of polarization, and then
there's a civil war for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you talk about like Teddy Roosevelt's
do you think
era,
we'll ever have another civil war?
I don't know if the will's there. I don't think the will's there.
I don't think so.
I think there needs to be a certain amount of will involved.
I think there will be a lot of like, you know, Twitter posts.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There'll
be cultural wars.
Yeah,
There'll be like
a lot of YouTube videos.
And I think that's where it's going to remain. Maybe violent protest over here and there, but I don't really know if it's going to.
I think the U.S. military is too strong.
And then I'm going to go right back to demographics being.
Do you understand how a civil war happens?
Yeah, but like, I mean, I guess if people in the military rebel too. But...
You had people literally storm the gates of our capital.
Yeah, but they didn't.
And what, did the military come in there and kill them all? What are we talking about?
Well, I'm saying like if the military wanted to.
Yeah, but what is the military made of?
People
with autonomy,
drones,
and conscience. Yeah, drones, right? But what I'm trying to say is like it's not that simple, brother. I'll give you a gun, and I'll give you some flower child in front of you who's trying to talk about butt fucking his husband. You might not agree with him. Are you gonna put a bullet in his head for it? I'm not.
Well, I don't.
Are you?
I don't think. Like
I know that I'm kind of being like a little bit like obtuse with this, but like I'm trying to like put a point here, like. This is why I go back to the masses. Is like the aristocracy, the elite can only get away with what we allow them to. And I will allow them to get away with murder if it means that the greater populace as a whole benefits. But when that no longer is the case, when that incentive base has decoupled, that's when you get civil unrest. That's when you get civil war. Civil war is not between an aristocracy class and the masses. It's the masses and the masses. That's the difference. It's not the military. It'll be within the military. Within the military, you're going to have conservatives and liberals. Within a corporation, you're going to have conservatives and liberals. Like you're going to have it in all aspects of life.
I mean, states.
Yes.
Look at Missouri. Missouri's a deep red state. There's no shortage.
Missouri during the Civil War was the neutral state.
Yeah, and was the neutral state for a really long time until Obama.
Oh, we expanded.
I mean, that's for real.
You're not wrong.
I mean, we voted for Bush, but before that, like we voted for Clinton.
Yeah, even Iowa voted blue. You know, so think about that for a second.
I mean,
I guess what I'm trying to say is the whims and wishes of the masses can change, and that I think that sometimes people with money, sometimes believe themselves untouchable. And the problem with money is it is powerful. It is power until it's not. And you can't eat money. You can't kill people with money if people don't value that money. People will value what's real. And I'm not trying to sound like super cryptic. Forgive me. That's not my goal. I agree with you with optimism. I do believe that. But what I'm trying to also like illustrate is like we are 3 or 4 bad choices from this. We really are.
I mean, I honestly see the conservatives winning in the end, though. So
you do or don't?
I do.
Why? Why do you say that?
Just 25% higher birth rate.
Yeah.
And
you're talking about over the course of time?
You're 80% more likely to...
Yeah, but if you have more... Okay, but every liberal could be... There's liberals that could be birthed from conservative
No, but
households.
what I mean is you have an 80% more likelihood of being the same political identification of your parents over time. So it's
it happened to me. It snuck up on me.
It does. It sneaks up on you, doesn't it?
My dad was a
really
Fox News dad, as long as I can remember.
Really sneaks up on you. But like that's what I mean though. It's just like as their birth rate, and it used to not always be that way. So like in the 60s, it was like 50-50, right? You get a Democrat and a conservative, basically same birth rate, right? But because of varying social issues and the propaganda on the left being nuclear family is not special, right? It's one of many ways you can do things. And then on the other side of it, you're like, nope, this is the way to do it. Like, you even see guys like Dave Rubin, he's a gay conservative and he's got kids.
He's gay?
Yes. He's got a husband.
Dave Rubin is gay?
Yes.
He's got kids?
Dave Rubin is gay and he has kids with his husband. Like those kids, his husband's conservative.
I did not know this.
But that's what I'm saying, though. But like his focus is like, we're gonna do a different spin on the nuclear family, but still 2 parents, children.
Can I be honest about Dave Rubin?
Yeah,
he's just a grifter.
Yeah, he's wild. He's wild. I
that's
agree.
The problem.
But he's just an example,
There's so much financial.
Douglas Murray is gay as well, But
oh my God, you're not wrong.
No. He had this great thing on Piers Morgan where James something. I mean the reporter who's like
about LGBTQ rights. He's like, I am a gay.
He's like, I don't need a straight white male telling me what to do. He's like, I've been gay before. I've been out of the closets before you were born.
Exceptionally intelligent, but I cannot agree with his stance on Israel.
Oh, it's why. But I mean, like,
that's the epitome of
when you live,
a highly intelligent person that can still be wrong on something.
But at the same time, if you lived in Europe and were a conservative, you might have a different tune on that because you have.
I don't know, man.
I'm
with you for a long part. Listen, I'm with you for 80% of the ride, and then when you start bombing fucking brown
I don't
kids,
disagree.
Come on.
I don't disagree. What I'm saying is like his bias and perception might be a little different because Islamic issues are actually like a huge issue in the UK, and they're not over here. So
when Ireland right now with Conor McGregor,
exactly,
and all this like weaponization of their government, he comes over to the States and like they're like, we're gonna imprison you for 5 years for Twitter posts.
Yeah,
and I'm just like,
yeah.
Do you guys understand who you're talking to?
But yeah, what I mean is just like that will always inevitably win and always has won. The side with the higher birth rates is generally always going to win in the long term because they're going to
just a mile run.
Yeah, and you're going to and conservatives are going to protect their children more. They're not going to send them more to public schools. They're going to homeschool more. They're going to private school more, and then eventually. That very factor, the one that I harp on constantly, is eventually going to win out. So I don't think there's ever going to be a need for a civil war because I feel like there's going to be an ebb and flow. I'm sure it'll come back eventually. The left will come back eventually.
Will create those that have not, and they'll blame those that have.
And but I just think that conservatism is around for a reason. Conservatism is I would say like a living, breathing thing as to where like it's this thing that has worked constantly forever, and it just keeps chugging along because it always results in higher birth rates.
But I would also make the argument that conservatism has become much more liberal.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
I wouldn't be a 2000s conservative. I can't.
Yeah. No. But
I can be a 2025 conservative.
But I mean, like conservatism always it centers around that single idea of like. Yeah. Family, children.
Actually makes sense.
And that's always going to win in the end because that's just evolution. It's just evolutionarily ingrained with us. I also think that's a reason that religion sticks around for so long and why certain religions outperform others because the religions like, Islam and Christianity, they really focus on go forth and multiply, breed. And that ideology is always going to win. And I just really think religion is ingrained with us genetically and it's never going to go away. And every time we try to suppress it, it's just going to explode back in, which is what it's doing right now.
If it wasn't the trifecta, it would be something else. Hinduism, Buddhism, we've found ways to create a higher meaning for our existence in one way or another, whether it's through your children, whether it's through a higher power.
When it's evolutionarily successful because liberalism says you don't need to have children. And I think that's its weakest factor.
Liberalism says you don't need to have children.
No. What I want the word.
Incentivize
I want the word in that to be need, not any other word in that. You don't need to have children. It's not a requirement. You don't need to get married, which is like great. Like I'm perfectly fine with anyone living.
Well, you won't be able to.
I'm just talking about what's going to be. I'm just talking about what's going to be more successful over time. Like as it evolves, like the conservatism's just going to win. Yeah. Just based off of just that. they're going to have all the kids. Like I said, right now it's 25%. That's not nothing. That's a pretty sizable advantage in birth rates in the United States. And I don't think that that's going to go down. I think that that's going to go up, especially with, you see young men like flocking to like orthodoxy right now. And like
well, I think what's happening with young men is a direct correlation to also the sexual marketplace and the fact that women have basically far gone chasteness. And men used to strive for greatness because they wanted to achieve or they wanted to acquire a specific woman that they were like, they had their eyes on.
Yeah.
And they had to rise to the occasion to be the man that they would want for this woman.
Yeah.
Now, because sex is like so prolific, like, dude, I remember when I was little, if you could have sex with a girl, it was like, my God. Now it's like, you fucked?
I have a feeling that's going to come back eventually, though.
But I hope it does.
Yeah.
I hope this doesn't come across as like very sexist, but I hope that women understand the power that they have over men.
Oh, absolutely.
And have always had over men.
Yeah.
Women have the power to make men greater or lesser. And it has everything to do with their ability to give themselves to men.
Yeah.
If you give yourself to a poor man, not in poor in the sense of money, but like poor morals, poor values, poor work ethic, poor mentality, guess what's going to happen? And when you strip away the need for men to be great, then do not be surprised when they step in not great. I know a bunch of guys that are all like kind of foregoing the responsibilities that I believe it is to be a man. And that's like nurturing, protecting, providing. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have like, your wife is a stay-at-home or you don't even have to get married if that you don't want to get married, dude. Like your girlfriend, your baby mama, whatever the fuck it is. As long as you're taking the responsibility, I'm happy. There's just a lot of men that I'm seeing right now that I would not call men. Yeah. And I think that is not an issue of like the younger generations. I think it's an issue of our generation.
Yeah, millennials especially, yeah.
And I think it has everything to do with promiscuity. Yeah. I really do. When it's so
easy. Gen Z is less promiscuous.
Can I say something to you? You might agree or disagree. My wife is going to hate this portion. How aggressive are women now?
Yeah.
Do you ever remember them being this aggressive like early on? Dude, when I was a kid, when I was like 18 to 24, I used to have to work for it. Now, Mop, we went out, me and my wife went out. And I was wearing a suit, she was wearing a dress, we were at like an event or whatever. The amount of disregard for norms and respect and all that stuff is immense. It's immense. And it's I hope women understand that like to a certain demographic of man, an advance like that could be seen as attractive. Yeah. But to some men, that is seen as trashy.
Well, do you think it could be a factor of men don't go up and talk to women anymore?
Well, I think that's more of a thing for younger men.
That's but what I mean is like,
how much damage did the
Me Too movement do? Do you think women now have to be more aggressive because men won't come up and talk to them?
No, I think women now have to be more aggressive because they're realizing that they're better if they're tied with a partner for a multitude of reasons. It gives them purpose. It gives them like a lot of solace. It gives them security, both financially and physically. I think women are best when they're coupled with men, and men are best when they're coupled with women. Yeah. And I think that had like 5-6 years there where women were told that they're better than men and they don't need men. And I think men were told that they were trash and this side or the other.
Oh, it's definitely the opposite now, though. Like, you see, just look at
there was an entire generation of women that were failed because of feminism.
Yeah,
they were failed by feminism.
I agree completely.
And you know what? I feel bad for those women. Yeah. I really do. Because men, we can always regain from our poor life choices. We can have kids when we're fucking 70. Our shit still works. Yeah. Women have a biological clock, and I do give some grace to them because their biological clock is also correlated to their most retarded years when they're young.
And I do think
when they're most impressionable.
And I do think it's just it's just crazy because it's the party that's like science. It's like you're not gonna admit that there's a biological.
They're not the party of science anymore.
I agree.
They're not the party of science anymore.
It's ideology, but like you're not gonna think that like you're not hardwired to be the happiest when you have children. Like you don't think that evolution's done that job for you? That like you have children and you're like, wow, this is the happiest I've ever been.
I don't know if it's evolution. I don't know if it's evolution or God gifted or what it is.
Regardless of what it is.
I can tell you this. When I had my daughter.
Exactly.
And Arion died and Arion was born.
Yeah, because you have to get that daughter. You have to get that daughter to adulthood so that they have daughters.
You've known me since I was like 21, 20.
Yeah.
How much different am I now?
Different.
than what I was.
Oh, definitely. You were out there. You were out there causing the feminists all the problems.
How dare you? How dare you?
You were there contributing
It
to the
was
problem,
all
brother.
consensual. I never had a Me Too.
Me too, though, dude. I contributed to the problem as well. When I
often
worked
say
at the
this.
bar, I contributed to the problem, absolutely.
For every guy who's slinging it, you have to have girls that are consensual.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is what it is.
But that's what I mean. I don't necessarily think the sexual revolution was a pro for women in the long
I also
run.
don't want to do this. I also don't want to go back to like arranged marriages
No.
and like women like
Absolutely
not having
not.
autonomy or choice. But I think we were talking about pendulums before. I think it's like, okay, before it may have been like too chaste, you were a second citizen, all these
Yeah.
other things. Now you're not the same as men. You're not.
Yeah.
I have strengths. Between me and my wife, there are things that I will forever hold on to and I will forever cherish and I will always lead on. And there are things that she does. And I'll never overstep those. I say this all the time. She makes 95% of the financial decisions in our household. The 5% that I do, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Exactly.
And want to know why we work? She knows that and I know that. I don't complain about the 95% of the stuff she spends money on.
Yeah.
She doesn't complain about the 5%
She
that
keeps
I
the
do.
economy going. You know?
She keeps the economy going. In one way or
Consumer
another. In
spending.
one way or another. My money or hers.
Exactly. No, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, I do think a shift.
Do you think the genders are still at war?
No, I mean,
Because they were for a minute.
I mean, I think they still are. You know, like, I mean, I don't know.
You're young. What's dating like? I know you're dating a girl, but like before that, how's dating like? Awful?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you just look at the demographic split when it comes to voting patterns with young men and young women, and you kind of see it's going to be an issue.
Well, you know what's crazy is men are getting more conservative and women are getting less liberal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to have to.
They're gonna have to if they want a man.
Yeah, exactly. They're putting their foot down when it comes to relationships, for
Whenever
sure.
I see a relationship where the people don't align politically, I think that's not long.
Now, do you think that, let's say, like Andrew Tate happened because of himself, or that was just there?
I think it's the right time.
Yeah,
the right
I think it was
person,
just
all these other things.
there.
I also think that I've said this once, and I'll say it again. I think Andrew Tate is like the worst example of what a man should
Oh,
be.
I agree. I agree
mean?
completely.
Do I think that 20% of what he says is true and right? I do.
Yeah.
But the other 80% is like, brother, you can't take a moral high ground when you're a digital pimp. Like, relax.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree with that, and I only used him because I think that he was definitely like
more prolific.
something
during
that like
COVID.
when he came out, it was like, whoa, what just
Who is this
happened to
guy?
society? Like, what just happened
Dude,
to?
you know Bree Stern, the ring card girl from
Yeah.
from Fight Hard? She went out there. She was like one of the groupies.
Hilarious.
Dude, I was on Twitter one day and I see her with like Andrew Tate. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, man. Talk about small. Like, she's a Rust Belt Missouri girl, ring card girl for Fight Hard, getting fucking absolutely blown out by the Tate brothers. I hope it was worth it. I don't know what they paid her, but I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, I think Jordan Peterson's.
I disagree.
Better. You don't like?
I think Jordan
Peterson
Peterson's too. I'm sorry. I think you need a homeostasis of both. I want monkey men. I do, because they're the ones that create men that will like strive for intelligence and all this other stuff. But you also can't have pussies like Jordan Peterson. You need,
But I
you
mean, he
need
also
an
in his
Andrew
rhetoric-
Tate-like figure with the morality of a Jordan Peterson. You need both, man. Like, okay, I'll make the same thing. Do you think the women that are chaste in marriage will live long in marriage, like in the sense of like they won't get divorced or anything, or their husbands won't go out and like cheat on them? You need to be all things for somebody at certain times. So, like, I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is gonna be TMI, but like my wife was like very chaste in her early years or whatever, and I was like, not. But when we got together, I became more like monogamous, and she kind of flowered in our relationship with me. If my wife, let me put it this way, dude, if it was like missionary every fucking night and we were just doing dinner and all that, I wouldn't have married her, right?
Yeah.
So she's doing all the things to keep me interested, and I'm doing all the things to make sure that she understands that she has security. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Balance.
You have to have balance. So, like, I don't like Jordan Peterson for all things the same way I don't like Andrew Tate, because they're not all things. They're both extremes. Like, I think Jordan Peterson cries too much, personally, and I think Andrew Tate is just fucking wrong about the majority of the shit that he says. And I don't think that that's sustainable for the average male. The average male won't have a Bugatti, just like Jordan Peterson has the intellect way above an average person. I think the average has always been what it was based on evolution. Mm-hmm. Just honor and cherish each other, and you'll be fine.
But I will say that rhetoric probably comes significantly more from the Jordan Peterson side than.
What do you mean?
I mean, I just think his rhetoric's better. He doesn't like
he's more presentable. He's definitely more presentable.
And also but it
depends. No, it depends on the demographics. Because if you talk to some red pill guy, they'll tell you Jordan Peterson's a pussy.
Yeah, depends on the demographics. But they probably haven't sat there and
I think I think the majority of the red pill community are like incels or like people that are divorced from women and hate women. I think if you call yourself in the manosphere, brother, you're a fucking loser. Just like I think like most liberal men are losers.
But I mean, most people
to be a liberal man in 2025, what went wrong? And then also be like a red pill. Like if you're subscribed to the Andrew Tate University, or if you voted for Kamala Harris, I look at both of you as idiots.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm just like, you guys are idiots for completely different reasons.
When Andrew Tate first came out, I was like, yeah, this guy sounds great. And then as more things come out, I was like, oh no, never mind.
How old was she?
Never mind. Yeah. Or not even just that. Just the rhetoric. When
he said the Matrix, I was out.
The rhetoric, I just think is the more important thing there. And I do think that Jordan Peterson isn't out there saying be a pussy. He says exactly the opposite when he's actually speaking. But Andrew Tate will straight up tell you to be a degenerate and then be like, but they're the degenerates.
You know the problem with it? You want to know what my problem with Jordan Peterson is? Brother, sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it is black and white. Sometimes it is they are wrong and you are right. And that's okay. You don't have to go into 50 fucking layers. You don't have to make it a philosophy exercise. You don't have to do a lecture. And here's the problem with it too. I think that it's the problem with all of these guys that kind of like make money off this space. And I hope, in a lot of ways, I hope that like I never live to see this. You start to benefit from the message more than being the messenger.
Yeah.
And that's when that shift happens. There was a moment in time when Jordan Peterson, I want you to go back in time. Jordan Peterson's first interview with Joe Rogan on the JRE.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to that.
Incredible.
And then listen to his most recent one. He was more the listener than the speaker.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Neil deGrasse Tyson. He used to be a staple on the JRE. No more on there. Why? Multitude of reasons. I think when you take people that were losers the majority of their life or unpopular or whatever, what have you, and then they get that success later on in life. By the way, Andrew Tate's also one of those guys. It changes people for better and worse. Would I rather, if I had a son, they would follow Jordan Peterson than Andrew Tate? Depends. Are they going for sports? Are they trying to be, a mathematician? Are they trying to live a healthy marriage? Are they trying to sling dick at college? What are you trying to do? And I'll tell you who's the better messenger. I think what has always been true is still true. And that if your parents aren't instilling your foundation and your morality, like, why am I able to look at Jordan Peterson and then Andrew Tate and be like, you both are idiots? Or at the very least, not idiots, but like, I don't like either of your.
Well, I think they're both smart.
I think they're both smart.
Yeah,
they're both very successful. I'm not saying that they're idiots. I'm just saying that I don't think either one is like the supreme example of masculinity. I think masculinity is both.
I think there is a mixture.
The ability to ruin the world and choosing not to. Yeah. That's masculinity.
Yeah. But I mean, that's it. I'll go back to, if you read any of Jordan Peterson's book, I mean, he kind of says that over and over again.
Yeah, but he's more theory, not application.
Yeah, no, I don't.
This is where I respect.
But I don't like either of them for application. I like what they say, not like I don't care about them personally really much at all.
I would be, if I had a son, I would want them to be Jordan Peterson in theory, Andrew Tate in application, and then meld.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it
makes
both.
sense.
It's not binary. You can be an absolute like douchebag, but
no, you should be.
You should some higher intelligence.
You should be disagreeable, yet you should also be.
Yes.
You
have
should also
some moral
be strong.
character.
Yeah.
Want to work out so that you can fuck every girl in the building, but only choose one. Like these are. Why does a man have to fit a mold of like, gardener or warrior.
No, they shouldn't.
Be
No,
both.
it should be both.
Be both.
Should
You
be
can
a
foster
warrior
the
in a
plant
garden.
and fertilize it with the blood of your enemies.
Yeah, you should be. You should definitely be both. There should be no doubts about that. You should be able to strangle someone with your bare hands and then be able to read a book and save time.
And choose not to.
Yeah, and then choose not to. Yeah, and choose to be kind to women. That's where I really get really dislike Andrew Tate. I just don't. I think that he was like, we love women, we love women, we love women, and I'm like, it just doesn't look like you love women, bro.
Well, it's the same thing I say like when guys say like I'm an alpha male, I'm an alpha male. You know what alpha males never have to say?
Yeah.
I'm an alpha male. You know what people that love women never have to say? I love women. Like relax, brother.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say this about Jordan Peterson that he has a quote on it and he's 100% correct, and I will give to this is that like a peaceful man is the man who has the propensity for violence but chooses not to be.
Exactly. Yes.
Because if you don't have the propensity for violence, then peace is not an option. It's
you're a rabbit.
mandate. It's a mandate.
That's what he says. You're a rabbit.
Yeah. So it's like you can't
Rabbit can't do anything.
Yeah, you can't say that you're a wolf if you don't have the propensity to be one.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I think like every man and woman, because women for different reasons, but for men, for confidence, for sustainability, for protection, for your own mental acuity and humility, learn martial arts.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you'll be 2 or 3 years.
Which is why I'm very happy that my gym's full of teenagers, because that's what I'm saying. I see the shift. I'm like, all right, now my gym's just full of teenage boys. This wasn't a thing before. It was always men in their 20s and 30s that were walking through the door. And, I'd get a couple fighters every once in a while. But now it's just like, I mean, I can't express. It's just like the numbers just roll in week after week, just the same demographic.
Are they trying to be martial artists? Are they?
I think they're just trying to be
men,
develop into men, and I just don't think. I think that obviously the influencer society has pushed, the Jake Pauls and the even Andrew Tate and all those guys. They've pushed, hey, learn how to fight, and then they get to come to me so that they don't become complete degenerate idiots like those guys. But
let me ask you this, Mop.
Yeah.
Do you think the value of jiu-jitsu is more in the physical or the mental?
The mental, absolutely. And I think that fighting just in general, I think the value of community is the biggest part for a young man. Like they come in there and it's just like, all right, now we have there's the tribe. And I think men, because women will never not have the tribe, because that's their whole ecosystem is generally the tribe, the gossip, the sit around, the fun, the drinking, and then just like men just
they're the social creature, we're the stoic ones.
Yeah, but we're supposed to be going out in hunting groups and killing things together. That's what we're meant to be doing. So you need to have something that replicates that, and that's when you get contact sports. We're going out there to kill those guys, or if you're just doing it in the gym, each other, beating up each other. But that's something that you need as a young man growing up, and obviously women need it for similar reasons as well. Like there's social groups go there, but for men, if they don't do it, it manifests itself in the worst way in society, in the most horrible, atrociously bad way. Which is why you're like, oh, martial arts is really good for kids. Why? Because it takes all that energy, manifests itself in a really positive way. In a communal way, you're going to act more like the people around you, and the people around you, what are they doing? They're working really hard, and you got Jake Duff with a samurai sword, walking around saying, work harder, and it's just the positive atmosphere, which is why I do think that the gym atmosphere needs to be more positive. For a while, I used to be more of a hard nose, for a couple of years there, really, really
produce fighters.
Roar. But now I'm like, you know what? No, the atmosphere needs to be positive, masculine but positive, right?
I was asking you questions earlier about the gym and the finances and stuff like that, but I actually have a question for you as a leader of a space.
Yeah.
Do you feel the pressure or the purpose to, in some way, shape, or form, Mop, you are now in the lives of these young men? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that? I don't want to use the word pressure, but that responsibility.
Yeah, you can use the word pressure. That's a better term for it.
Because it's not just what you're showing them, right? When they're walking in, you're the leader by definition. Yeah. You're the owner just and the default. Black belt.
Yeah.
But it's also the things, I was going to ask you this when you were going on your rant, but it's the things that you're saying and the things that you're doing, not just the things that you're showing them, right? Yeah. So the things that your political leanings or the way you treat women or this or the other, they're seeing more than they're hearing. Yeah. Do you ever stop to think how'd I get here?
Yeah, absolutely. You remember me. I was
Listen, we were all young and dumb. I said this about myself that I've grown a lot, but Mop, I said this last time on the podcast. You've also, you positively surprised me last time, and I'm very glad to see the man you've become.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. But yeah, definitely. I feel a lot of pressure to help people, and it just really sucks. Sometimes it goes the other way, and that part sucks, because you do put yourself in like, I mean, it sucks because I try to never do it, but like it's impossible to look at a coach not in like a patriarchal kind of role, right? And for a lot of these,
if they're a good coach,
if they're a good coach, and for a lot of these guys that could bring up a lot of traumatic experiences and put you in they end up putting you in a position that you might not really want to be in, but you also have the responsibility to lead, and it can be tough, and it can be pretty bad, and very rewarding. Like the reward definitely eclipses anything that I could be considered bad. But the bad stuff does stick out. Fallings out with students and stuff is always so bad when you're in that position, because you are kind of seen, like I said, like you're looked at like that patriarchal role, that almost father-like role. And that can be really good for some people, like really, really good, life-changing. For me, it was life-changing, right? Like JW is a life-changing individual in my life. Like it's not even, like I can't even express it. I thank him every time I see him. I don't even think he understands it, but like I just go in there to his gym like once a month is my goal to see him. And then when I see him, it's just like I'm sitting there like apologizing for something I did like 15, 16 years ago that he's like, what are you talking about? Like
overwhelming gratitude.
Yeah, it's like I just want to say sorry for being. It's like when you're young, you're so rebellious to your parents, and then when you get older, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that I ever put you through any of the shit that I put you through, and that's how I feel towards him. So I know that is something that is bestowed upon my students as well, that I do have a responsibility and a pressure for, but I also know that like I had a lot of animosity towards him for no reason coming up sometimes.
JW?
Yes, that parental kind of animosity that you get for like your parents when you're younger, And then I've come to where like, and it was literally just like with your parents, it's not for any good reason. That guy, they were just trying to steer you in a good direction that they thought was best for you based off of their superior experience in life. They're like, oh man, this isn't going to go well. You keep going down X path, and I'm just kind of like, who are you to tell me what to do, like when I'm younger? And then as I turn around and get older, it's just like, wow, no, you were the most important person. And it's never like I didn't love him, like, like, oh, you're like the man, but it was like, almost like teenage angst towards him for certain parts. And I know that there's going to be students that feel that, and sometimes it's going to go astray, which has happened with him multiple times as well. What I've learned is like, no matter who you are as an instructor, you can't prevent that from happening. But yeah, to your question, yeah, it's like the responsibility of that can be overwhelming and is special. And I think that you could bring up any coach here and ask them that question in depth, and I think they will give you a fairly similar answer that like, sometimes it's you develop intense relationships with your students, and you try to keep them like, we're not friends, and like it's a hard line for both people, but when it does bud into something like really special, wow, just like the reward you get from it, like it's synchronicity that you get with some of your students can be like just insane. Like I have it with Sam, absolutely. Like we're just, in line with each other all the time. But yeah, like, and several other students as well. He's just the first to come to mind because, he was like the young kid that came in when I, with nothing, and kind of grew him up to what he is now and helped him along that way. And he's been really, we do have that kind of relationship. But yeah, that develops and buds. I mean, I'm sure from being a wrestling coach the same thing. Like it is an important responsibility.
It's slightly different though, because my coaching is always like with the intention that they will inevitably leave.
Yeah, and that's not really where it is.
Your coaching is like a little bit different. Like I find I find solace in the growth because like I'm just a high school coach.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if I do my job right, these guys will wrestle in college or they'll do something. You know what I mean?
They'll leave the nest.
They'll leave the nest. It's always the intention they leave the nest. I think your job is a little harder than mine.
Because I have to prepare for when the nest, when
or if they don't,
when it doesn't work out,
or they do, or they don't. Like you have more variables. You know, if I had one day, I'd like to sit down and talk with you and Mike Rogers.
Yeah.
At like the same fucking time.
We could see if that ever happened.
I think we could do it. But
maybe.
I would listen. I've talked to both of you guys on and off the record now multiple times. You would be shocked from one another at how many times you guys repeat the same things.
Of course, it's the same thing.
I think when you first started, you didn't have the tenure. Like, listen, Mike is the GOAT in the sense of like the longest and all these other things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you've also now been here a decade yourself. You've outlived a lot of other gyms. You know what I mean? So let me put it this way: you both have a healthy respect for one another at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Good competitive spirit, but a healthy respect. The last question I'm going to ask you is, for me, myself, in coaching, it was always with the intention that they will inevitably leave. But with you, I would say that the intention is that they stay. You've had guys stay with you through thick and thin. You've had guys leave. What is better? When, I want to be careful how I ask this question because it's kind of like philosophical. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Does the hurt of them leaving, is that worse than the pride you feel in them staying?
And
if they leave,
it depends because it depends on
variables.
how the leaving happens. Because let's say that, like, I mean, you left, no big deal. We're sitting here talking now. I don't feel any pain about that. Or like, you know, I've had several guys leave for other gyms for positive reasons, like, hey, this is just not working. I just want to go over here. This works better for my schedule, or this fits better for me now at this career. I have zero problems. I've never had problems with that. I've always been the guy that's been like, man, yeah, do you. Just go on. If the split is bad, I mean, that's a pretty serious amount of pain, especially if it's really, really bad, you know? But
meaning like disrespectful and
yeah, you know, maybe even potentially violent, you know, like,
oh, wow.
not that that's not ever
Jesus
happened,
Christ.
but I'm just saying that's a potential kind of thing where like you can get, this is an emotional sport, you know, like, or, you know, just spewing things on social or whatever, just like this person did this or that. And like I said, when you get in that mentality of like, you know, like falling out with your dad kind of deal, like that can be really destructive for both sides. But, I do feel a lot of pride in people staying and sticking it out even after their career's done. There's nothing I enjoy more than someone that's done fighting and then, like, you know, takes a year off and then all of a sudden a year later they're back training and I'm like, oh my God, there's this guy and he's like, hey, and he's super happy to be there and now he's just being there to train forever until the day he dies. That's what I'm really in the sport for. It's like the long haul. Like if I can create like good fighters and get a good reputation and get them to their goals, that's amazing. But what I really want them to do is, no matter how their career turns out, to be like, all right, this is what my ultimate, what I want is what we were talking about earlier. I would want to do what JW's doing. Like he builds up these students and he's like, hey, you want to start your own school, be financially independent and do what you love every day for your life forever? I can help you with that. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. And then boom, there's another school 30 minutes, 20 minutes away from the original school. It's like, okay, here's the sister. When I say a second school, that's what I really want. I really want all my students to have schools somewhere else, spread what I mean, because obviously that's what JW did with me. You know, that's what Keith did with me. You know, I'm out here representing even though I'm not an official Gracie Humaida school, I still rep JW every day that I possibly can. Like I post whenever I go to a school, I'm like, this is my home. You know, and that's kind of what I really want. You know, I just want my students to be like how I was, to where like, oh man, well, you know, guy changed my life. You know, my path was going one way. I started training. My path went a different way. And that's, I mean, because that's what happened with me. I mean, I was like a little depressed, little fucking emo kid in high school. And then didn't
look
have
at
any.
that glow up.
Yeah, right. Look at that glow up. Yeah, what's up? And then I find
now you're here
jiu-jitsu.
wearing a suit.
Yeah, now I'm here wearing a suit, you know, got a fade, you know, good times.
Look good, brother.
Thank you.
I like
try
you
to
in a
look
suit.
good. Yeah, I like me in a suit too. It's my favorite thing to wear, man. I need to up the get some more expensive suits here in the future. But yeah, no, that's what I really want, because that's what happened to me. You know, I was probably gonna end up being like a little fucking girly boy, like sissy, like whiny guy who wasn't enjoying life and probably working a shitty job. And now I literally do what I love every single day, and I get to help other people do what they love every single day, and build a community. And community building is just like, oh, it's there's nothing quite like it. You build like a good community of people. Like I can't stress, like currently right now where I'm at, my gym has energy wise never been better. Never been better.
God bless.
And it's because the people that have been showing up were looking for something and they found it, right? They're like, oh, this is what I found. And now we have this huge community. And like my classes have never been bigger, and everybody is just like really loving the community that's being built around, you know, primarily me, Jake, my wrestling coach, Dominic, my jiu-jitsu coaches, Ryan Dahman, and Nick Hulp. Like those guys, all five of those like primary nighttime instructors just built like this, like we just built like this incredible thing all together. You know, Brian Hurt as well. And Liz and Lily are a huge part of it as well, like that community building thing. They teach classes too. And then I got these morning class guys where like we just built a great morning class, right? Like, and that class is growing too, and everybody in that class, positive attitude. And I couldn't say that, you know, like even like, you know, 6-7 months ago, like, you know, there was ebb and flows with negativity, and then just like lately, it's just boom, positive energy. It just goes to show you how important like mindset is for everybody. Like everybody, like we're getting in a growth mindset now, and we went in this growth mindset, and that's just the way to go. I think it's abundance. You know?
I can resonate with that.
The abundance mentality is the way to go. Like there's like, you can't be going around being like, oh, there's not enough people. Like there's
Scarcity is a
no,
mindset.
no, it's just abundance. Like we're going to keep getting people, because there's so many people out there that are looking for it, and we're going to find them and give them what they want. So, yeah, and I think that would solve a lot of, you know, local issues in the community too, if everybody was just like abundance. There's just so many people.
Maybe it's because I've become Switzerland, and like I'm like neutral to everything now. I don't think it's ever been better.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I can also say that I have a lot of discussions with people off the record, and let me tell you this. It's just a lot of respect and like admiration. Very, very, very little shit talking.
Yeah.
Very.
Good.
And the shit talking that does occur is usually with regards to like malpractice, not individuals. Yeah. I hate how so-and-so did this, not I hate so-and-so.
Yeah.
And that makes more sense. Nuance. I appreciate you coming back on for a second time.
I have enjoyed it. I'd do it anytime.
I appreciate you finding these in the in the archives.
In the archives, bro.
I got to.
I had to remind you that I gave you a blue belt, because you know.
Drew reminded me after I said that.
Yeah.
You know, it's so crazy.
On the podium, man. On the podium, you won that gold medal, and on the podium. Raj is on there too, in third place.
Oh my God! Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I'll leave you with this. I'm glad I came down.
Yeah.
I'm glad I came down.
Yeah.
I'm glad I trained with you guys. I'm glad I was there when you guys were nascent and growing, and I got to see a different side of you. I got to see when I look at you now, it's like almost like I'm not looking at the same person.
Oh yeah, it's not really.
But yes and no. You know, life is just fucking beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that you played black first while I was gone. Listen,
likewise.
I thoroughly enjoy you, and I appreciate you. Brother.
I appreciate you as well, dude. Appreciate what you're doing here.
I appreciate this.
Thanks.